Hello. Happy Thursday. Can you guys hear me okay? I need to check in with you guys because I had audio issues on another platform, so I want to make sure you guys can hear me here. Hello. Hello, hello. We are back with David D4VD. I don't remember the last time I covered this, maybe a month or two ago. I can't remember, but it was when the autopsy released. I think around that time. I've covered it for a while, but Um, today, we're going to be covering days 1 through 3 of the preliminary hearing. Is it Thursday? I know it is. It is. Welcome back. Thank you guys for being here. Please make sure you hit the like button and be prepared. We are going to be talking about some gruesome stuff, of course, with the Celeste Rivas Hernandez horrible death. I did attempt to get the transcripts for this, guys. I really did. I'm able to get day 1 now and the rest when the hearing is over, but honestly, they're really expensive. So I guess it just depends on how bad everyone wants to hear them. I know other creators will probably get them too. So if one of them shares, and I can work something out with them financially on the back end, but they're expensive. They're each day is like a couple $100s. So I'm gonna try to get them elsewhere, but I don't know how well that'll work out. So I have tried to get the transcripts, and I don't know. Haven't decided if I want to go through with it when it's all said and done. This is apparently allegedly supposed to last about 5 days, and today would be day 3. So what we're gonna do is just go over a couple of articles, watch a couple of clips. I do have Celeste case timeline up pulled up in front of me. So if we need to go back and look at any dates, I also have X pulled up. So it's going to kind of be a little bit of everything since I don't have the transcripts and there's no cameras allowed in the courtroom. What I have got is that Celeste, she was not recognizable from the decomp level she was at, which is, we kind of already knew that, but to hear that in the preliminary hearing is just so sad. Her parents are in the courtroom, and they have been showing pictures um, of her body, her dismembered body. So I can't imagine how that feels, being in the courtroom. And we're going to be watching Lauren Conlon from LA Mag. I went up on her channel a couple weeks ago regarding Kenzie case, but um, she's a news reporter. So we're going to watch a couple of updates from her because she's been in the courtroom. I also have some stuff about the financials that has come up in the David case or trial. I didn't know hearing, my bad. Trial should be starting, but I didn't know that David was so well off. Allegedly, he made about $10 to $12 million between 2024 and 2025. So, of course, that's gonna definitely be an issue if the family decides to go civil. But there's some disturbing news I heard about that. Today in the courtroom, Steve Fisher, a private investigator, was asked to leave. So we're gonna kind of get into a little bit of that drama. Um, Let me see what else. Those are just the things right off the bat. The blood, of course, there was blood that's tied back to him. And then I found a website that goes through recaps. And I think they only have day 1, but they did a pretty good job on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and read off of that for day 1. Let me make sure. I didn't see. Yeah, day 2's not up. But we'll learn from day 1 there. So there's a couple of things we're gonna be reading. We're just hanging out. I've been so incredibly busy today, but I do plan to get back to Kenzie, and I have some guests coming on. So I'm working on that on the back end, which is a lot, but I think you guys will be enjoying the guests that are going to be coming on. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start off with a Fox 11 article, and then we'll jump over to a Boston Herald article, and then LA Magazine, and then we'll watch some clips. Let me say hello to everyone: Robert, Debbie, Vicky, Evie, Crees. I saw Janie in here. Hello, Cindy, Robin. Thank you all for being here. Alicia, Carrie, Kate, Jesse. Good to see y'all. Did I miss anyone? I think I got everyone. And Peach, hello, hello. And Laura, good to see y'all. Okay, so let's start off. I might go all over the place for a little bit, but it's fine. It's not the end of the world. Let's start off with this financial article that I wanted to kind of get into. Sorry, my screens are tripping out. I'm gonna go this way. Okay, there we go. Ooh, is there a lag? Let me know if it gets better. It might be me. I've been having issues with StreamYard, and I should be switching here soon, but it's a lot of work to switch. Is it good now? Let me know. I'll wait to see if it's better before I start reading. I definitely need quality time with my people. I know, I was so busy today. I was hoping to do 2 lives today, which we might still be able to depending on how long I'm here. But hi, Amy. Thank you for being here. Hi, Melly. Love your content. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so this says, this is Fox 11. This is from yesterday. David in court, alleged 13 million financial motive and gruesome Tesla evidence takes center stage. So we're gonna just read these 2 articles and then we'll go like back to day 1 and day 2, just specific articles on for those days. It's good. Okay. All right, just to refresh, let me know if it happens again because I know I have a lot of stuff pulled up on my end, so it might also lag on my end. Okay, so it says a preliminary, multi-day preliminary hearing for David Burke, known as D4VD, continues in downtown Los Angeles. Graphic details and horrific images continue to be shown in court regarding the killing of 14-year-old Celeste. On the second day of the preliminary hearing, LAPD criminalists presented graphic forensic evidence detailing 11 air fresheners and maggots found inside Burke's impounded Tesla. Why did anybody think that air fresheners was gonna work to make the smell of decomposition of a human body going on in the trunk? It's actually ridiculous. Wednesday marked the second day of a high-stakes preliminary hearing as the defense and prosecution continue presenting evidence to a judge who will determine if David Anthony Burke, known as D4VD, will stand trial for the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. What we know is he was arrested and charged in the murder of her death, who had been reported missing out of Riverside County multiple times starting in 2024. Let me actually go back to David is a damn idiot. You know, it's really just disturbing. Let me go back to day 1 so we don't get confused here. I have a lot of questions about what the hell David was thinking, you know? And also, there is a phone that's missing still, amongst other evidence, and I do wonder about all of that as well. Let me pull up day 1 so we don't get confused about the days instead. Okay, so day 1, hearing day 1, graphic images of Celeste. A preliminary hearing began. Okay. Prosecutors allege the rising star killed the teenager to protect his career after she threatened to expose their illegal sexual relationship. The same week, his debut album, Withered, was released. The singer and his legal defense team have maintained his innocence. What we know is that legal experts expect the preliminary hearing to last for an estimated of 3 days. At its conclusion, a judge will determine if there is enough evidence for the singer to stand trial. I'm assuming there is enough evidence to stand trial. If convicted on all counts, David faces a death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. I did hear that Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hodgman Hochman or Hochman. Don't know how it is pronounced, but he was in the courtroom from what we're getting. Fox's 11, Christina Gonzalez, was inside the courtroom and reported that Celeste's parents, Jesus and Mercedes, were in attendance. They were asked if they would like to leave before the detective's testimony, but both opted to stay. During the testimony, LAPD robbery homicide detective Josh Byers described the severe decomposition and heavy stench of the body where it was found inside the impounded Tesla on September 8th, 2025. He also detailed that fingers were severed from Rivas's hand. As graphic evidence photos emerge inside the courtroom, including images of a hand missing fingers and a tattoo on her right index finger, a spectator had to fan the victim's mother because it appeared she was going to faint. I was a little surprised to hear that they were going to be showing this all. I guess they can show whatever they can at a preliminary hearing, but I didn't know we were going to hear about these pictures. Um, but that makes sense, right? In deciding if he's going to go to trial. I look at her and she was just a baby. Yeah, I agree. Hey, Chucks, good to see you. And hey, HCB. Let's continue. Gonzalez noted that David had no reaction and remained nonchalant as photos were presented. We're going to hear Lauren Conlon talk about this. Like, I guess he was just fixated on the pictures. He didn't look away. He didn't make any faces. It sounds from what I'm getting is that he was used to that kind of thing, the gore, the blood. It's very scary, but and concerning. So apparently he was like fixated on the pictures. The defense received a permission to have his hands free, but he remained shackled to a chair. Photos taken during Burke's April 16th, 2026 booking were also presented as exhibits showing marking on the singer, including of the name Celeste on his left ring finger, a matching tattoo on his right index finger, and a religious symbol on his palm. And here's a drawing of him in the courtroom. Also, on Tuesday, body camera video from February 17th, 2024 was presented in the court. I really wish we could see that body cam. That is when they go and tell him that she's a minor and he basically denies everything. So that body cam should be interesting. In the video, a sheriff's deputy was called to a Hollywood Hills home regarding a missing person report out of Riverside County. Burke claimed to deputies that he had only met the teen once at the beach after meeting on social media via Discord from 2020 to 2021. Burke claimed Celeste told him she was 18 as deputies presented her yearbook photos to him. At that time, she was 13 years old. I did hear, I don't know if we knew this before, but he had a screensaver, I guess, when his phone got, when they took his phone for like evidence or whatnot. He had a picture of her, and allegedly she was like 11 in the picture on his background. And I don't know, it's sick. It's sick, sick, sick. I was going to say thank you, Chucks, for becoming renewing your membership. I appreciate it. And hello, Vicky. Thank you for the gold coins. Oh, Dubra. Melanie, let's hope there's enough. Thank you for the super. There's enough evidence. Just look at Tyler Robinson prelim. More than enough evidence, and no decision was made yet. Oh, that's another one I have been covering, just not on lives, but you're right. It's a great comparison to Tyler Robinson prelim. More than enough evidence and no decision was made yet. Yeah. I appreciate you. Thank you for that. And thank you, Chucks, for gifting a membership. Looks like Joseph Francis got it. So welcome to members. We will be having members only lives all weekend. So I have been working on those. This will be fun and exciting. Let's continue. Investigators also presented evidence found inside the garage at Burke's home that matched receipts for online and retail purchases made using aliases, including T. Ravion Davis and Victoria Mendez. Evidence detailed the paper trail surrounding the time of the alleged murder, April 24th, 2025. A shovel delivered via Postmates, a blue inflatable pool, fireproof floor mats from Amazon, a Makita chainsaw from Home Depot, which was never recovered, and a Lowe's mop cleaning system matching one recovered in Burke's garage. If I'm not mistaken, we did not hear about this in the other. We heard about the burn cage, but I didn't know about the fireproof floor mats. I think that just came out now. Um, with this preliminary hearing. And I also didn't know about the mop cleaning system. I don't think that was in the, what do you call it? What was the document? It was like a complaint with the charges, I believe. I don't remember seeing those, which is interesting. Burn box and navigation records. An unopened burn box incinerator was found behind a piano in the home. Digital forensics also showed Burke's phone, which he called it tranquilizer, was last connected to the Tesla system on July 29th, 2025. The same day store receipts and videos show him driving the vehicle before parking it near his home on Bluebird Avenue and walking back via an alley. Interesting name for your phone, tranquilizer. So apparently this phone, there's a phone that's missing. I don't know if that's David's second phone or if it was Celeste's phone. That's horrific. I know. Chucks, I hope you feel better. Hey, Doreen. Thank you for being here. That's horrific. Yeah, it is. I hope you feel better, Chucks. I didn't know you were in the hospital. We missed you. Thank you for being here. This is the first of listening about this case. No way. Oh, wow. I think it's one of David's phones. I think there's another phone that's missing. If I we'll find out from the recaps, but I believe so. Defense questions evidence handling. During Tuesday's cross-examination, Burke's defense attorney questioned how investigators processed the evidence and challenged their protocols and timeline. Multiple responding units. The defense pointed out that three different law enforcement departments, Hollywood PD, West Bureau, and Robbery Homicide, responded before criminalists arrived to process the scene. Preservation of evidence. The defense questioned why the cadaver bag containing the torso and head was not taken as evidence or tested for DNA before being destroyed. Detectives testified it was too damaged to preserve beyond removing the handles and zipper. So I don't think that this will completely get him off the trial, but what I think, in my opinion, is David's going to try to get the death penalty removed off the table. That's what I think. But they were only able to get the handles and zipper because of the how bad the decomp was, which I heard Celeste was not even recognizable because her face was like melted in due to the waterlogging and the decomp that was happening on her body, which is so terrible. It's brutal. Scene logs and testing. The defense pressed detectives on why no official scene sign-in log was kept for officers entering the house, why the outside of the burn box and vehicle were not tested, and why two chainsaws found in the house were not kept for DNA analysis after initial luminescence testing came back negative for blood. The defense also presented an image of a blue iPhone 15 found at the residence, asserting it may have belonged to the victim and contained material not belonging to Burke. Interesting. Financial manager testifies on high stakes. This was an interesting thing to me because it makes it sound like David's parents think he's getting out of this. For some reason, they are, I think it was a financial manager who says that his mom is like working to hire an entertainment attorney literally as this preliminary hearing is going on. And I'm just disgusted by that because, like, why? What do you mean an entertainment attorney? Like, he's not getting out of this. You know what I'm saying? Unless the defense has some like groundbreaking news that's gonna or evidence that's gonna come into play. But now that I know how much David was worth, I can see why he did panic about Celeste going to police. Not that it makes it right what he did. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he was trying to keep her quiet, and his family is going to be entitled to those funds. His mom, I think, is his financial manager. So I don't know. Let's read more into this. Prosecutors called Benjamin Greger, Burke's financial manager and owner of music management practice, to establish that David had a massive financial motive to protect his career. Greger testified that Burke generated between 10 million and 11 million between 2023 and 2025 through merchandising and music publishing advances. During questioning, prosecutors highlighted that Greger's own income and bonuses were tied heavily to Burke, suggesting bias. Greger also admitted that key associates, including Burke's mother, began using encrypted messaging applications after the victim's remains were discovered in September of 2025 to avoid leaks to the media. Yeah. I don't want his parents to be attacked for no reason, but you know what? They were the ones who didn't want to show up to the grand jury. I get it. It's their son. We've had this conversation with the Kenzie case as well. Like, they're gonna do whatever they can for their kids, right? But I feel like the parents here definitely know a lot more than they're saying. And Celeste went to Texas with them, so with David. So I feel like they had to have known about this relationship. Does he think he's going free? Yeah, exactly. I want to know more about the friend that testified at the grand jury. Yeah, me too. Um, what was his name? Um, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's Neo. That's sorry, I couldn't think of it. It's been a while since I've covered the case. His parents were forced to go. No, yeah, they were. They were forced. Starts with an L. It's Neo. Okay, let's see what they're saying. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman made a brief appearance during recess on the first day of the hearing. The standard that we have to meet is not beyond a reasonable doubt at the preliminary hearing stage. It is probable cause. We are not obligated, nor will we be presenting all the evidence at a preliminary hearing that will be presenting at a trial to prove David beyond a reasonable doubt guilty of the 3 felony charges of which he has been charged, he said. TMZ Charles said during his appearance on Good Day LA that Burke's attorney asked what they requested for the removal of his handcuffs in court. Quote, she does not feel it's necessary. He's had 5 hearings already. He has never in the time since he's been arrested ever attempted to escape, he explained. Officials have released disturbance details in the case, and Charles expects more details to emerge during the hearing. There's a lot of DNA evidence that shows, in particular at his home, he said. There were burn boxes that were purchased, so all of these things and that pool were bits of it, according to the medical examiner. There were bits of it included in the body parts that were found in David's Tesla. So they believed what happened is that he dismembered her and put the remains in the kiddie pool in his garage to prevent the blood from getting all over the garage. They found evidence of that in the remains, so that is a very strong piece of evidence. Criminal defense attorney Mark Garrigo said the defense could possibly use a Robert Durst-style defense. Robert Durst was acquitted because his defense was that basically the death was caused by self-defense and all of the gruesome cutting and dismembering took place afterward. So God only knows if that's what the evidence would show here, that she died and all of that because because as you aptly noted, I mean, those are hard facts to deal with when you've got saws, you've gotten purported cleanup area, things of that. But if all of this was to dispose of the body, I know that's kind of a gruesome thought, but that still does not make it a murder if that is the case. The backstory. On September 8th, 2025, the remains of Rivas were found in a Tesla registered to the singer at a Hollywood tow yard. Prior to the discovery, the family of Celeste had reported her missing multiple times from her hometown of Lake Elsinore, which is located roughly 70 miles from Los Angeles and Riverside County, beginning in February of 2024. So here's like a little bit of a timeline just to refresh our minds. February 17th, 2024, deputies conduct a welfare check during which David is informed that Rivas is only 13 years old. April 2024, Rivas Hernandez is reported missing for a second time. April 22nd of 2025, Rivas Hernandez allegedly threatens to expose the relationship during an argument. April 23rd, 2025, investigators believe Rivas Hernandez is murdered on this day. April 24th, 2025, Burke allegedly orders a shovel via Postmates. April 25th, 2025, Burke's debut album Withered is officially released. May 1st through the 5th of 2025, Burke allegedly uses an alias to acquire chainsaws, a body bag, and an inflatable pool. July 7th, 2025, Burke allegedly orders a burn cage. September 8th, 2025, the teenager's remains are discovered inside a Tesla at a Hollywood tow yard. April 17th, 2026, Burke is arrested on suspicion of murder. April 29th, 2026, graphic dismemberment details are revealed during a preliminary court hearing. May 12th, 2026, a major court date is postponed to allow the defense team additional time to review evidence. July 7th of this month, 2026, both the prosecution and the defense state that they are ready to move forward with the case. So that's just a little bit of recap on day one. Let's watch a video by Lauren Conlon of day one. I do have a playlist on this case. We have covered a lot of it in depth. It's just been a while in the last 2 months that I haven't covered it. She was a minor, started a relationship when she was 11. Yeah, exactly. I think we still have to say allegedly because it's an active court case. Yes. She was a little baby. How long was her body there before he dismembered it? A month or so, right? So allegedly April 23rd. And I think he purchased the stuff like May 5th. So it was like, I think 2 weeks in between. But then, there's a whole Santa Barbara thing. He went up disposing of things and who knows what else he did. So yeah, there was time in between everything, which again, gives him the time to do the right thing, right? And he didn't. Multiple occasions he had that he could do that. Opportunities, I mean. Let's listen to this. David, preliminary hearing, day one, graphing and disturbing details.
It is day one, lunchtime at the David preliminary hearings in Los Angeles. And I'm going to give you a recap of the morning. I'm going to try to do it within 10 minutes. And Taylor Parise, another reporter for LA Mag, she is capturing DA Hochman's presser. So we'll have that later on lamag.com, on all of our socials. So check there. But I'm going to go backwards for a minute. Or actually, no, I'm going to just sort of start off by letting you know who was in the courtroom. So Nathan Hochman was sitting in the second row, I believe. And also in that row was the family attorney, Patrick Steinfeld, for the Rivas Hernandez family. I believe they are also present, or some of them are, as it was discussed this morning before the proceedings began, that they would be able to attend under Marcy's law, even if they are going to be testifying at the actual trial, should it go to trial. And this is the case as well for David's family, the Burke family. I did not see them, but I didn't look very hard, so I'll check later. And I'll have an update on lamag.com later today, again, as well as all the socials. But yeah, so David, his attorney, Blair Burke, first argued about the shackles. She said that these are they're inappropriate because his behavior has been appropriate in all other proceedings. He's very mild-mannered, he's been polite, and he is innocent until proven guilty. And Judge Almeida basically said, he can have his handcuffs off to drink water, take notes, but he needs to be, shackled at the waist. So there was that. And, I just want to say something. I tweeted out this morning just some very graphic details about the photos we saw from inside the Tesla. And that's what I mean when I'll go backwards here. So let's go backwards from there. This was from a Detective Byers from the LAPD Robbery Homicide Unit. These photos, again, they were very awful. They made my stomach turn. A few other reporters I noticed as well kind of had to look away, but David did not. David did not take his eyes away from these photos. He also kind of gave me the sense that he was very relaxed in court, almost like he was kind of sitting in English class or something, just following along with the teacher. So, he would sit back in his chair a little bit. He would lean forward sometimes, and his mannerisms with his attorney, they were interesting. Blair Burke would rub his back. They would smile at each other. But again, throughout the showing of these graphic photos, he didn't move. He didn't. After the police had opened the trunk, they ended up calling Robbery Homicide Division when they found a body. Detective Byers shows up and he describes the scene, and then we see the photos. So what we saw, it was very troubling. We saw several garbage bags with blue handles, and they were closed. We'd see them closed, and then we would see them open. So we saw a closed bag with lots of liquid and blood and just insects sort of around it, and then we would see the bag opened with her arms and legs bloody, and it was bad. They were wet, they were dismembered, and it's what you would think they would look like. Then we saw another bag that contained her head and her torso, and I did see a black mass of hair, or so I thought I did. And again, it was just bloody, wet, and very, very decomposed. He was asked if he could identify any facial features, and he said no. It was so badly decomposed because of skin slippage is what he called it. We also saw a close-up of her hands. We saw the fingers that were amputated. We saw the finger as well from the other hand. And yeah, it was tough. But again, he had his eyes just glued to the screen. So I want to go back, because from there, they obviously were able to identify the Tesla as belonging to David Burke, from the plates, the Texas plates. And they were able to get a warrant as well. And so then we talked a lot about the different warrants that Byers was able to obtain here. So they were able to see that David, his iCloud account disconnected from this Tesla last on July 29th, 2025. They also found a receipt in the Tesla from Ross's, like clothes for less or something like that. And they had the address, and they had the date. So they went over to Ross's and they pulled surveillance, and they saw that it was David buying clothes on July 29th, 2025. So they were able to kind of match that up as well. And let me just go back. Sorry. I have so many notes here. So yes, so they were able to do, through a warrant, just extractions from his phone, which apparently was an iPhone 16 Pro, and it was Pro Max, called the Tranquilizer. And this phone, by the way, has never physically been located. And this was the phone disconnected on the 29th. So
right, because we just read that there was a 15. So there is another phone. I'm going to rewind that just to refresh.
This was the phone disconnected on the 29th. So per Celebrate activity, they were kind of showing us sort of the places that he went, and they were screenshotting some of these places from the infotainment center on the Tesla and matching it up to the iCloud. For example, we had a trip identified in navigation to Santa Barbara and Lake Cachuma, plus a Tesla charge in San Ynez Valley in May of 2025, a month after they believe she was killed. There was another location of interest, a charging station on 729, which is on the way to Santa Barbara as well. And they found surveillance footage from a home nearby when he parked the Tesla on July 29th, 2025, the alleged last time that it was in his possession. And they showed us just multiple angles of him getting out, going into his home, and that's that. So let me see. Oh, they talked about getting a search warrant for the home as well, where they went over the evidence that we kind of already knew about. The burn cage, they found that in a box behind the piano. They found a blue iPhone 15 that belonged to David. And, they also said.
So iPhone that belonged to David. Yeah, I was thinking that. Dubra says, could it be the phone he purchased her? Yeah, and hasn't been located. So there's evidence that is missing that we allegedly, I think he got rid of, obviously, on that Santa Barbara trip.
They found a tower computer where there was another email address, and this email address was also connected to the iPhone or the iCloud data that he had, and it's follow it, which is FALLIT and some numbers at gmail.com. And they actually found through that email or through that iCloud on the tower computer several flights that David had booked between I think it was LA to Texas and LA to London for both he and Celeste. So, there was also purchases made under another alias besides Victoria Mendez, Travion Davis, I believe it was. Also the red Tesla in the garage, they were showing us photos when they were discussing the search warrant. They said that was registered to Robert Morgenroth, and they identified him as David's manager and, quote, personal assistant. I found that to be interesting. So, how they also identified Celeste, Jesus Rivas called LAPD Communications on September 10th after he saw lots of media coverage on the 8th, and he said, look, I think this might be my daughter. And basically, he used his son as an interpreter, or Celeste's brother, and he was able to provide LAPD or the medical examiner's office with her dentist's office so they could, identify the dental records, and it was her. And also, he did say that per Jesus Rivas Hernandez, Jesus Rivas, that she had two different phone numbers, and he gave them to police. And then they also found out that she had a third phone number that no one knew. And when the detective said her name, he said, did he say his daughter's name? He said, yes, it was Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez. That was very sad. It was a very sad moment to hear her full name. But just going back really quick, because I'm trying to get this under 10 minutes. The first witness that we heard from was Detective Joshua Byers. No, I'm sorry. That's what I just talked about. It was Deputy Juan Gonzalez from the Sheriff's Department in LA, who was told to go to David's house based on the investigation that the Riverside Sheriff's Department was doing when Celeste went missing. So we saw body cam from that, where basically, he talked to David, and David kind of said, yeah, she told me she was 18, but then I heard she was 13. We see the photo of her, by the way, that yearbook photo, and man, apparently she's in 6th grade there. She looks younger, you guys. She looks much younger. She had this Batman zip-up sweatshirt on that was just, again, it was meant for a little kid. So anyway, let me stop this video. I will have.
Interesting. Yeah. I call bullshit on David anytime he tries to say he didn't know. He did know. She looks like a little kid. So there's that. Someone asked, did he know? Let me go back. When she went on all these trips, did her parents know she was with him? I hear that in this preliminary hearing, they are trying to get to the bottom of who knew what. I don't want to just necessarily put the blame on the parents because, again, we don't know what that relationship was like. Clearly, it wasn't good. Or maybe she was just like a troubled teen who kept running away. I think both could be true. But my question is, if he was traveling and he was going out of the state, out of the country with her, but she wasn't 18. So a parent would have had to approve or forged signatures, or somebody knew something, right? So on his team is what I'm getting at. And yeah, they didn't report it. So shall they be held liable? I don't know. You let me know what you think. And if it's going, out of the country, is that like sex trafficking because she's a minor and it's out of, crossing the traveling. Would never blame his parents in this situation for sure. I heard they were very poor. I read that she would run away constantly and they tried to get her home. It's very sad. It's very sad. Yeah, a third phone number. I'm sure David, the one that nobody knew about, I'm sure that was the one that he paid for to communicate with her. But yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm like, out of the country, she would have to have parental consent. Does that make it child trafficking or sex trafficking? YouTube's going to be mad I'm saying those words, but it's just the truth. You know what I'm saying? Yes, I thought so. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, let's go back to an article and then we'll go to day 2. I just want to make sure we get like the main highlights of the preliminary hearing. So Celeste Rivas Hernandez family was present in the courtroom, like we know, pursuant to rights under Marcy's law. David appeared relaxed. He's sick. Detective Byers walked the court through a timeline of purchases allegedly linked to Burke in the months after Celeste's death. According to Detective Byers, investigators traced records showing a shovel purchase from Home Depot on April 24th, 2025, followed by multiple chainsaws bought through Amazon and Home Depot in early May. Prosecutors also introduced records for an inflatable pool, a cadaver body bag labeled City Morgue, and a heavy-duty laundry bag, all delivered to Burke's Doheny Drive home during the same period. Additional records showed purchases of a burn cage and a fireproof mat in July of 2025. Many of the Amazon orders Byers testified were placed using an account Trayvon. Okay, we just covered that. Based on the timeline of items ordered on and or purchased, one could potentially speculate that there may have been a change in plans in regarding how the body would allegedly be disposed of. Right? Because there's time in between he allegedly unalived her. Oh, why did my screen change? And then when he dismembered her, like I said, there was time for him to make the right call, right? And like turn himself in or whatever. But he still decided to dismember her 2 weeks after and do what he did after he unalived her. So David is just let's see. Byers also described Burke's April 16th, 2026 arrest, telling the court that detectives documented several tattoos during the booking process. We know they had the matching tattoo. During cross-examination, defense attorney Blair Burke zeroed in on how investigators handled certain pieces of evidence, questioning whether some items were properly preserved or thoroughly tested. Burke first focused on the black cadaver bag in which Celeste's remains were found, asking why the bag itself wasn't kept as evidence. Byers testified that after consulting with his supervisor and a criminalist, investigators decided the advanced decomp and bodily fluids made it impractical to preserve the entire bag. Instead, detectives removed and kept only certain parts of it, including the zipper and handles, for forensic testing. Byers acknowledged the rest of the bag was not fingerprinted, swabbed, or otherwise tested. I don't know how much of a role that will play in making the decision of does he deserve to stand trial. I'm sure he will, but this is what the defense is, questioning. Burke then questioned the detective about a burn cage found inside Burke's home. Byers testified he saw an unopened box near a piano on the second floor and that it was photographed during the search. However, he acknowledged the box was neither tested for biological evidence nor collected as evidence during the September 17th, 2025 search. The defense also pressed Byers about 3 chainsaws recovered from Burke's home, 2 in the garage and 1 on the second floor. Byers testified all 3 were tested for blood and each came back negative. When Burke asked whether investigators conducted DNA testing or compared the saws to the cut marks on the victim remains, Byers says he did not recall any DNA testing and testified investigators did not pursue additional forensic testing after no blood was found on the tools. These are like things that, do they hurt, do they hurt what the prosecution here is trying to the charges, does this hurt this? I don't know. Probably not. I think there's mountains of evidence that points to David allegedly doing this. Defense attorney Blair Burke also questioned investigators' claim that a light blue iPhone 15, recovered from Burke's home belonged to him. During direct examination, Byers had testified the phone belonged to Burke based on information recovered from the device, including selfies and personal items. On cross-examination, however, Burke pointed to a search warrant affidavit related to Celeste's iCloud account and email addresses, including her email, Abigail Blue, and questioned whether investigators had previously linked the blue phone to Celeste instead. Either way, whether it's on her phone or his phone, she was a child. She was under, she was a minor, a child, and he wasn't. So when Burke asked Byers about the warrant, he initially said he did not recall the specific language he used until he reviewed the document. After reading it, Byers testified that the affidavit referred to the email account belonging to Celeste, not ownership of the phone itself. The exchange became a little heated, with ADA Beth Silverman objecting that Burke was being argumentative. Burke responded that she believed the people would eventually attribute the phone and its contents to David. Judge Almeida then instructed counsel to move on. It's possible they were referring to the alleged CSAM material previously found on what is believed to be David's phone. Prosecutors called former Mogul Vision finance director Benjamin Greger, who had a lawyer present. He testified about David's finances and the rise of his music career. Greger, who previously handled day-to-day financial management for Burke's business, told the court the singer earned an estimated $10 million to $11 million in gross income between 2023 and 2025, including a $600,000 signing payment from Interscope Records and roughly $2.4 million during the first year after signing with a label. Greger testified that Burke also operated multiple business entities, including a publishing company and a merchandising business that received multi-million-dollar advances. Silverman appeared to introduce the testimony as part of their effort to help to establish the high financial stakes surrounding Burke's career before Celeste's death. Greger further testified that after Celeste's remains were discovered in Burke's Tesla, communication with Burke's management team sometimes moved to encrypted messaging apps such as Signal and WhatsApp. Interesting. Greger said using the encrypted platforms were not his decision and testified it was requested by others. He also claimed he still works with David's mother, Colleen, and is on a $7,500 monthly retainer in hopes of finding a new entertainment lawyer for the embattled singer. The statement seemed curious as the singer is incarcerated and facing murder charges. This is weird. What do you need an entertainment lawyer from, like, behind bars? Like, what, he's going to start making music in the prison? You know what? My opinion only is, I don't know. I don't know about the mom here. She seems to know a lot more than she's definitely putting out. You know what I'm saying? Respectfully. It's just so disgusting. He cared more about his career and image over her life. He knew she was just a baby. He would never have started knowing what the ramifications would be. Just sick. He thinks he's going to get off. Yeah. It's wild. And what a slap in the face to, the family. Beth Silverman also questioned Greger about Burke's finances after his arrest. Greger testified Burke had a trust account with Morgan Stanley, rough valued at roughly $2 million, and said he discussed helping his mother, Colleen, move money that could potentially be used for bail. He also testified one of David's homes was intended to be used as collateral for bond, while another was not. Silverman then questioned Greger about previous grand jury testimony regarding whether he advised Colleen to transfer ownership of Burke's home into her name. Greger testified that he suggested the transfer because one of the properties was a family home. When prosecutors asked whether he had previously said the move was intended to protect the properties from potential civil claims by Celeste's family, Greger said he did not recall making that statement or preparing any transfer documents. He did acknowledge providing Colleen Burke with the name of someone who could assist with transferring the titles. On cross-examination, defense attorney Marilyn first moved focus away from Burke's finances and toward how his business was managed. Through Greger, Marilyn Bednarski established that Burke entered the music industry with little experience after gaining popularity as a gamer. Greger testified that Burke's day-to-day affairs were primarily handled by his manager, Robert Morganroth, who was employed through Mogul Vision, while Burke's mother, Colleen, was Greger's main point of contact for financial matters. So Mama is the one handling all the financial matters. And you know what? I just hope that when the civil part of this comes, I hope that the family can still sue. I know they're probably moving, assets and doing this and doing that, probably so they don't get sued, but that's bullshit. Like, that's complete, utter bullshit. And the Rivas Hernandez family should sue his mother. She knew. Celeste went to Texas to the family home. So you knew, you enabled that relationship. Therefore, she should be charged, at least civilly. Hey, Nisi, good to see you, love. Let's watch this short 4-minute clip.
Here, David is back in court today for a highly anticipated preliminary hearing in the murder of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez.
David is facing multiple charges after the teen's dismembered body was found in the singer's Tesla last year. KTLA's Jillian Smuckler is live at the courthouse in downtown LA with an update on the proceedings. Jillian?
Hi, Sherry. Yeah, I spent all day inside that courtroom watching this play out. It was a media frenzy in the morning. It still is today. What I could tell you is court just wrapped up, and there is a lot of new evidence and graphic pictures that we are seeing for the very first time. I can tell you there was a stark difference in emotion between the suspect and the victim's family. The suspect, singer David, well, he had little to no emotion as graphic evidence was presented against him. Meanwhile, just feet away, the victim's family, Celeste Rivas Hernandez's parents, they were emotional. The mother was seen crying, and I even saw the prosecutor look at them before those pictures were shown, and told them to look down. So day one of this preliminary hearing, it really offered the public, the media, all of us, the first detailed look at the prosecution's evidence in this highly anticipated case. Now, an LAPD robbery homicide detective testified about the discovery of Celeste Hernandez's badly decomposed and dismembered body inside the trunk of David's Tesla at a Hollywood tow yard. We were shown graphic crime scene photos as the detective described finding severed limbs and a body so badly decomposed it was unrecognizable. The courtroom also watched nearly 10 minutes of body camera video from a deputy who conducted a welfare check at David's Hollywood Hills home while searching for Celeste. Now, in that video, David appeared calm, told deputies he had only met Celeste once after they connected online, claimed she told him she was 18 years old, though prosecutors say she was actually 13 at the time. And as the deputy was leaving, you hear David say, quote, "I hope they find her." Now, a detective also testified today about his online purchase history. Prosecutors say Amazon records show he bought 2 cadaver bags, a shovel, heavy-duty laundry bags, and 3 chainsaws. Now, after court wrapped up for the day about an hour ago, we actually caught up with the wrongful death attorney Celeste's parents hired to investigate this, and he spoke about the pain they're feeling after seeing those graphic pictures for the first time.
They're horrified. There was an image of Celeste's torso and her head in the trunk of the car, And the prosecutor had to ask what it was because you could not tell it was a head. It was absolutely, it was deplorable.
During the lunch recess, Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman also spoke to the media. He said he's confident prosecutors will ultimately prove their case if this does in fact go to trial.
And we will prove at that point, beyond a reasonable doubt, that David committed these 3 crimes. And when, we do not predict if, when he is convicted, we will then be seeking the sentence that we are allowed to seek by order of the law, and we will let you know in a future date whether or not that sentence will also include the death penalty.
The final witness today was David's financial advisor with Mogul Vision. He testified that money was moved between different accounts in an effort to post bail, that they are searching for a new entertainment attorney for David, and that he continues receiving a monthly retainer from the singer and his mother. Now, that man is expected to be called back here for day 2 of the preliminary hearing today. That's going to be tomorrow, of course. Day 2 of that, we're told in total, there's around 10 witnesses that are expected to be called up by the prosecution as they continue laying out evidence. And ultimately, a judge will be the one who determines if there's enough for this case to be brought to trial. Of course, we will be here every step of the way, including tomorrow morning for day 2 of that preliminary hearing.
Wow. I'm still stuck on the mom looking for entertainment attorney. It's wild. Okay, let's watch this clip by Armon Wiggins. I don't know who that is, but he was in the courtroom, and it's about 2 minutes. So let's listen to what he has to say.
So we are here at the David Burke versus the people. This trial is probably the most gruesome, nasty, dark trial that I've ever done. The fact that we're sitting here looking at torsos, dismembered arms, legs, feet chopped off at the knees. You've got the mom in there crying, like tapping her eyes. You have Beth Silverman in the hallways telling her, you know what, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. The dad is going through emotions. It's a lot. David is seemingly very calm in there, though, in an eerie way to me. I thought that was interesting. Like, he came in laughing and kind of like real jovial. And even his attorney seemed to be, you know, not really fazed by the evidence. But I'm like, they've done a great job by, you know, the prosecution has done a great job by, you know, associating David with the cell phone records, associating David with the black Tesla, which associates the body. It's a theme. But for me, seeing that girl's hand chopped up like that with the missing fingers, and then they had the one finger with the on the side, like, and it was clear as day. The finger just laying there. Then it was just the whole body with the head and the torso. No arms, no legs, no knees.
Wow.
And just maggots. This is a lot. This is a lot. It's gonna be a big deal. I hadn't seen anything like this before, so. But we're gonna recap it all tonight on YouTube.
Wow. I can't believe, I know I cannot wrap my head around it either. I can't believe they all saw these pictures too. Let's read an article and then we'll jump over to a clip from Brian Enton. Prosecutors zoom in on bloodstains to show singer David should be tried for killing 14-year-old. Maggots. She was so badly dismembered in her decomp. I can't. I know. It's brutal. And he looks gross there, even in the painting or drawing. LAPD prosecutors dug into the details of bloodstains and other forensic evidence on Wednesday in hopes of persuading a judge that singer David should go to trial for the stabbing death of Celeste. On the second day of preliminary hearing for David, whose legal name is David Burke, LAPD criminalist describes collecting samples of possible blood and DNA from the garage, where prosecutors allege Burke dismembered her body, and from his Tesla, where her body was found months abuse of a child and mutilation of a body, and his lawyers have said he did not cause her death. Here's another sketch. David seen in court on July 21st, Tuesday. On Tuesday, authorities had said that they had evidence that Burke had purchased chainsaws, an inflatable pool, and a shovel that were used to kill and dismember the teen who had known him for several years and even traveled to London with him. That's the part where I said, is that trafficking? Child sex trafficking? No? Yes? I don't know the laws regarding that, but I'm assuming so. Alicia, you asked a question. Let me go back. He used to say he would manifest his music. We've covered a lot of his music, you guys. Go back on the playlist. We've gone over a lot of this case, but we'll probably pick up on it now that it's at this point. I thought someone said something about he unalived her and then he purchased the things to dismember her, and then he went and got rid of evidence. So human trafficking, yes. That's what I thought. Every time his picture comes up on the screen, my dog starts barking. Yeah, and he's just sitting in that courtroom acting like it doesn't faze him, you know? On Tuesdays, authorities said that they had evidence Burke had purchased chainsaws, an inflatable pool, and a shovel that were used to unalive and dismember the teen who had known him for several years. Oh, I just read that. Traveled to London. So that's important. Who was on that London trip? Who knew about this? Who bought the flights? Who signed for her to go? Did the parents know? Were they even aware? On Wednesday, the testimony focused on the forensic evidence. Authorities said that they found that they say proves he killed her and got rid of the body by hiding it in a Tesla that was registered to him. Lauren Wallace, a criminalist with LAPD, testified that she found apparent blood stains on rubber mats on the floor of the garage in Burke's Hollywood home, as well as slits, most likely from a sharp object on the mats. He cut her up on top of that mat. Prosecutors said in a filing before the hearing that blood found in the garage matched Celeste's DNA. Wallace testified that she did not find blood evidence on 2 chainsaws in the garage that purchase records show Burke had ordered soon after the girl's death. But I believe there's 1 chainsaw missing, and that probably has evidence. But she said she sprayed the floor mats with chemical that possibly shows bloodstains otherwise not visible by the naked eye by making it glow blue. A photo showed the whole area cloaked in bright blue, bringing soft gas from people in the courtroom. And she said possible blood evidence was found on garbage bags and cleaning wipes and a rowing machine in the garage. Another LAPD criminalist, Chelsea, found fewer and smaller but similar stains in the Tesla. The defense pressed the witness over every step of the evidence collection process, attempting to show lapses in preserving potential crime scene. Burke's attorney, Blair Burke, who asked who had been wearing gloves or not with access to the car and why Sydney Murillo, didn't swab for DNA on the outside of the Tesla. It didn't seem necessary, Murillo said. Defense attorneys often use preliminary hearings to explore potential weaknesses in the prosecution case that can be exploited at trial. Prosecutors say Burke killed to keep his career. Prosecutors are seeking to prove that David, an indie pop singer whose music and online presence brought him a huge following, began a sexual relationship with Rivas Hernandez when she was 13 and he was 18. They said in a court filing that she had grown jealous of his relationships with other women and threatened to expose him and ruin his career the night before she was killed. The court filing said he sent a car to pick her up on the night of April 23rd, 2025, and stabbed her when she arrived at his home. Prosecutors say he kept the body for weeks or months in the front trunk of the Tesla, where it was found after the car was towed 4.5 months later in September. Los Angeles Police Homicide Detective Joshua Byers testified that when he called when he was called to the Hollywood tow yard, he found a body bag with a head and torso inside and garbage bags with arms and legs. Buyers testified that records showed Burke had bought such a body bag on Amazon, along with the chainsaws and other tools prosecutors say were used in the dismemberment. Wallace testified that a third chainsaw that the police said Burke had ordered was not found. So I think that third chainsaw is with the cell phone. I can't get past this. You know, he kills her, he unalives her. Okay, he's keeping the body in the home, in the car. And then he makes a decision to dismember her. Not that I'm saying I think he should have put her in the burn cage, but I'm just wondering, trying to figure out like his brain processing this, because like I said, there was time in between each crime and he could have done the right thing, right? And he didn't. So to me, it just continues to prove that he's a monster. He's a monster all the way across the board. Rivas Hernandez's passport was found by highway. A California Highway Patrol testified that a road worker in January had found Rivas's passport in a brushy dirt area in a rural section of Santa Barbara County, about 95 miles northwest of Burke's Hollywood home. Prosecutors have said that Burke made 2 trips to the area, once on the night of the killing and about 6 weeks later, where data shows he was at the spot where the passport was found. So he goes out to Santa Barbara the night of the killing and then probably gets rid of stuff and then goes back 6 weeks later. For what? To get rid of more evidence, or to like make sure you did your job, which was just hide the evidence. He just went back because he's a psychopath. Firing squad needs to be back. Yeah, they need to go ahead and put him down. I know, a right fair trial, but he's not a human being. So scared to raise kids in the world. Yeah, I know. Especially when dating, right? We've seen what happens in these relationships. He's a graper. In my eyes, I'm sorry. He was 18. She was 13. She was a kid. I don't care about it. You're gross for doing that in the first place. His the defendant has been held without bail since his arrest. Okay, now let's go back to a 2-minute clip from Brian Enton, and then we'll hear about day 2 from Lauren Conlon. I like the little updates she gives. Not very long, but very detailed.
So just got out of day 2, ended of the preliminary hearing for David Burke, accused of murdering Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Again, just graphic end to the day. Celeste's parents actually left in the afternoon, and I'm kind of glad they did. They talked a lot about the potential blood evidence. There was an investigator on the stand talking about a blue light they used, found blood splatter possibly in David's car, in the garage, on black mats, inside that kiddie pool that prosecutors allege David possibly dismembered Celeste. There were apparently gashes and cuts in some of those black mats that they talked about. Some of this stuff is just awful, but you know, the condition of the body I told you about yesterday was decomposed. There were maggots all over his car, investigators said. There were air fresheners in the car and in the trunk trying to disguise the smell, but there were so many maggots that they said you couldn't even see one of the air fresheners. It was just completely covered in maggots. So the details are brutal, but day 2 is over. It's expected to go all week long. I got to give you guys these video updates because no cameras allowed in court, no live tweeting, nothing like that. No information can come out until break. So it's been a little difficult in that way.
Less clothing, an inflatable pool, cell phone evidence.
Okay. Let's watch this next clip by Lauren Conlon about day 2.
Of David's preliminary hearings, very dark, not quite as dark as yesterday, but when David entered the courtroom, again, shackled and cuffed, he was uncuffed, and he was shackled at the waist still. His lawyer, Blair Burke, she did the thing where she kind of rubs his back and whispered to him. And it really does give me vibes of like Leslie Abramson with the Menendez brothers. Brian Ented pointed out that Ann Taylor also did this with Brian Kohberger. I think that some of these female defense attorneys, they think that it makes their male client maybe seem like less of an alleged monster. So I did notice that. And David, once again, very casual, very unfazed, sitting back in his chair, you know, watching the screen, watching the witnesses, no type of emotion whatsoever. So Marilyn Bernardsky, one of his defense attorneys, continued her cross-examination of former Mogul Vision finance director Benjamin Gregor, who again was testifying that nearly all of David's finances were handled by his mother. I think the defense was really trying to hone in here that although the People is claiming that these crimes or these alleged crimes were financially motivated, truthfully, he didn't know how much money he had. Gregor said that, sorry if you can hear me. Gregor said again, you know, David didn't really have much involvement. He never asked him how much money he was making or what was coming in. And Marilyn Bednarski tried to ask him about a charity or a trust that was used for giving to charity. She kept bringing this up. There were objections to this, just to, you know, like, why are we even talking about this? What's the relevance here? And the judge sustained the objections because she's like, yeah, this is a probable cause hearing. And I was like, I see what they're doing, but, you know, there's no jury here. So stop trying to say he gives to charity. This was interesting. There is a new name to watch for, a bodyguard named Sheldon Jaculus, I think I heard, but it was tough. Even Gregor, the witness, couldn't quite tell us his last name. So he was identified, Sheldon, as Burke's live-in security guard. And Gregor testified that he lived at David's home for about 6 months, but Gregor said that he never discussed what happened inside the home with David.
Okay, so this person must be very familiar with Celeste, considering she was living there at times.
And also, this was during the redirect examination with Beth Silverman. So she also pointed out during this redirect that, you know, well, you say David didn't have any say in his finances, but, you know, he signed this contract himself, or he signed the contract for this home that he bought. So he kind of knew something about how much money he had. And Gregor said, yeah, okay, you know, I got it. Gregor acknowledged that David did have an account or a credit card or two, or both, outside of what he managed for Mogul Vision. So let's see. Gregor did point out that at one point he was asked about the trips, the trip to London, the trip to Texas. You know, did David purchase this through anything you saw under the Mogul Vision accounts? And he said no. And Beth Silverman kind of insinuated, okay, right, so he purchased this through his own account, which he managed. And Gregor was like, yeah, probably. Then it came up. Silverman asked if Gregor ever discussed Celeste going to London with Colleen Burke or Josh Marshall, and he said no. But then he did end up admitting that he discussed Celeste traveling to London with Robert Morgenroth, in which he said he just kind of asked him if it was true. Like, is it true she traveled to London with David? And I'm paraphrasing here. And again, yes, Gregor said he later learned the airline tickets were bought through one of Burke's personal accounts, nothing that he manages. So then
So basically, other people knew. And nobody said anything. Well, with that type of money, who would, right? Neo needs to go away too. Anyone that facilitated this needs to be put in prison. I kind of do agree. How does a medical examiner even do the exams with the smells? I don't know. But Celeste was really, really bad. Badly decomposed. The words I read were her face had been melted off.
Silverman goes back to this bodyguard, Sheldon, towards the end of her redirect. And she's like, so, and it was very forceful. She was like, Did you ever discuss David and Celeste having fake IDs or drugs and alcohol or partying or Sheldon driving them to parties? And it was like, whoa. There were some objections, and Gregor was like, nope, no. So I'm thinking that the line of questioning around this Sheldon character was very significant. So we should probably remember this name. And also I want to point out the judge, Almeida, she was definitely frustrated quite a few times with both the prosecution and the defense. I would say namely the defense over just certain lines of questioning that she thought that were going beyond the scope, but they were still kind of being, argumentative. And there was like another point where Beth Silverman, she says something to Beth Silverman, the judge, and Beth Silverman's like, actually, I was going for impeachment. I was like, so yeah, it got a little hostile for a minute. And then the next witness, This is kind of long and drawn out, very much about David's financials. Louis Pomeroy, excuse my pronunciation. He was the VP of finance at Interscope, worked there for about 3 years. He really just went through the money that David amassed from 2022 to 2025. I put some of this on Twitter, some of these numbers, and what he also highlighted through Beth Silverman was something called a Coogan account, which is basically through California law, 15% of these earnings, if you are a minor, has to go to this Coogan account, which, your parents or your, whatever, I'm blanking on the word. Basically, this money goes to a minor, and your parents or your guardians cannot access this. And so they were kind of hinting that, okay, in 2022, David made $950K, so 15% went to the Coogan account. And I think it's gross. I think in my tweet, the numbers may be off because it's gross income or gross earnings. And then in 2023, he made $3.869 million. So yeah, I did the math out. And again, it could be slightly off, but that's $142K around going into the Coogan account in 2022. And in 2023, that's about $580,000 going into that account. So, again, I'm waiting for the exhibits to be ready. And hopefully I can sort of give you the exact numbers. I did the best I could for my story on lamag.com, although I said some of those numbers are subject to change. I forgot my glasses. I could not see the screen very well, but I do think they are largely accurate. But again, I will be making changes once I get those exhibits if necessary. So yeah, let me see what else. I mean, during the cross-examination by Marilyn Bednarski, which was pretty tough, he wasn't really understanding some of her questions about the contracts and this and that, the contracts that were broken with David. And it was just very slow. But one thing she did point out was that, isn't it true that once you turn 18, no money goes into this Coogan account anymore? And he's like, I don't really know the logistics, but per the chart, he turned 18 in 2023, and there was no money allocated to that account anymore. So then after that, we saw the Caltrans worker that actually found Celeste's passport. And sorry, I'm going to that right now. Okay, so the Caltrans worker, Sean Buenarrostro, he got a call from dispatch about January 7th, 2026, 1 p.m. in the afternoon, 1:40 in the afternoon, excuse me. A Caltrans worker was working, and he actually gave us the location. West Camino Cielo Road. This is off of Highway 154. It's east of this road. It's a 2-lane highway separated by double yellow lines. And then there's a steep dirt embankment on the right side of the road. And we were kind of shown the area. He showed us where it was found. It was, brush and this and that. And he took photos, and he had pointed to the area where he found it. And then he dropped a pin for the GPS locations. He also said that the Caltrans worker, upon finding this, Googled Celeste's name and noticed who she was. So that's why he called the police. During cross-examination, Regina Peter just kind of was like, so was he wearing gloves when he found it? Like, did you put this ID in anything, like a bag, when you transported it back to the station, in Santa Barbara? And the Santa Barbara cop, Buenarrostro, said, no, I didn't have anything. She asked if he knew if the ID was found face up or face down. He didn't. She asked if it could have gotten there, by way of weather. He said he didn't know. And then she just pointed out that the GPS coordinates that he noted actually took them to the highway instead of this area with the brush. And, you know, he just said that he dropped the pin with the satellite overview, not the traffic overview. She was just trying to poke holes and kind of where it was and how it got there. And I know what she was trying to do. I mean, it was, I don't know, it was interesting, but it didn't sway me either way. And then the last witness before we stopped was Chelsea Murillo, who was an LAPD criminologist who found lots of air freshener in the Tesla. Lots and lots of air freshener. One of them said love is in the air, but I will have more later.
Lots of air freshener to try to hide the smell of a decomposing body. David is dumb as hell. I am thinking, okay, so he bought the shovel to bury the stuff, but that was after the fact. So he went back and made sure that it was buried completely. You know what I'm saying? Oh, thank you. Katie says stay hydrated. Yes, you're reminding me to stay hydrated. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. Hold please while I take a drink. For the gems. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's interesting. And if the passport was found, was it the weather or why wasn't anything else found? She mentioned the live-in security guard that knew about Celeste, and then we're gonna watch a 3-minute clip with Kadisha Lynn talking about this live-in security guard because clearly he knew what was going on, in my opinion.
Day 2 of David's preliminary hearing, and we are already learning about a security guard that had been living with David, and this is the first time we are hearing about this man. This testimony continued from David's financial manager that we heard yesterday, and he was testifying that David had this live-in security guard that lived with him for 6 months, which is pretty crazy because the PI, Steve Fisher, has always referenced somebody else being at this house the night before his house was raided. David's financial manager went on to testify he never asked this live-in security guard whatever happened inside this home. Prosecutors started grilling this financial manager, asking if the security guard ever purchased fake IDs for Celeste, if he ever purchased alcohol or drugs, attended parties, or even drove Celeste or David to parties. And this man on the stand said that he never had those conversations, so basically he's not sure. Beth Silverman started to ask this financial manager about the trips that David and Celeste were taking on United Airlines. He went on to testify that he never talked about the London trip that David and Celeste took with Josh Marshall or David's mother. But he did end up admitting that he did discuss David and Celeste's trip to London with David's day-to-day manager, Robert Morgenroth.
Robert Morgenroth and the live-in security. I'm side-eyeing.
Shout out to Rabbit for sending me these transcripts because in this guy's testimony that he did yesterday, he talks about Robert Morgenroth also. And then they asked this guy, when was the last time that he talked to Robert Morgenroth? And he said it was a week ago. And they said, was it anything related to the case? He said, yes. They said, what was the nature of your conversation with him about this case? And he said that he showed him 2 pieces of mail that his mom had received in relation to, I guess, some wiretapping or information related to his records being subpoenaed. Which is crazy because you remember TMZ reporting that Robert Morgenroth was subpoenaed to the grand jury and they overheard a conversation outside of the grand jury room where he was saying he was being grilled by Beth Silverman. And allegedly it had something to do with not calling the police. And then we hear this financial manager, who I think is sketchy, talk about how he moved over to encrypted applications to talk to Josh Marshall and Robert Morgenroth after the
going to those encrypted applications. I know it's a thing with famous people, but it seems sus.
News came out about Celeste being found in David's trunk. Then went on to talk about the airline tickets purchased, and he said that those airline tickets to London seemed to be purchased from David's personal accounts. And they were pointing out how David has this financial account and he was purchasing things by himself, like homes. But prosecutors basically trying to show that David was aware of his finances because it will go to financial gain, which is one of the circumstances under the murder charge. And this testimony also goes along with the next witness we have on the stand, who is from Interscope. With him really testifying how much David has made, he testified in 2022, David made $950,000. And in 2023, it was $3.89 million. And this is really all we have right now. They're basically laying the foundation, like I said, for the financial gain part under the murder charge. But hearing about this security guard, who is a new person that we have never heard before, is very interesting because it sounds like they are testifying that this security guard was around David and Celeste a lot. So I really hope we actually get to hear from this security guard or hear more about this security guard and what all he actually knows. I'll have some.
Yeah, we want to hear from him. We need to hear from him, right? Wonder if his followers still thinks he's innocent. He was driving that car at the end of July. He really thought car fresheners. What date did she actually go missing? There's quite a few dates that she actually went missing. And you know, whether she was reported or not, that's like a whole nother thing too. Because we know she would run away, come back, run away. Very sad. Okay, let's see. Day 2 of the preliminary hearing. Wednesday's preliminary hearing got off to a heated start as defense objections during testimony from senior David Burke's financial manager. Okay, Interscope Records VP Luis Poemiro testified that David's deal was worth $13 million to $19 million, plus millions in endorsement advances from brands like Crocs, Hollister, and Bose. Defense attorneys argued Burke's mother handled his day-to-day finances to show he was unaware of his net worth. No. I could see the mom handling it and wanting it, but he definitely knew how much he was making. However, prosecutors pushed back, arguing that Burke personally signed major contracts and may have kept unrecorded accounts to buy plane tickets to London for himself and Celeste. Testimony turned to physical evidence as CHP officer for Caltrans worker found Celeste's passport in tall grass, in Santa Barbara County. We know that. Tesla findings. Despite the victim's remain being removed from the Tesla's front trunk, a criminalist noted a heavy stench of decomp, maggots, dead flies, and 11 air fresheners scattered near the driver's seat and front. A second criminalist detailed finding rubber mats. We did not hear about that in the last court document. I know that because we went over that very, very, very carefully. Finding rubber floor mats marked with linear cuts from a sharp object. Initial chemical tests show positive indicators for blood on the mats. The brick floor underneath, a rowing machine, tarps, a Tesla charger cable, and a trash bags containing blood-stained wipes and fabric. Clean inflatable pool. Investigators recovered a blue inflatable pool that smelled freshly cleaned with a folded dryer sheet inside, which also tested positive for blood under chemical testing. 2 seized chainsaws tested negative for blood, but remember, there's one missing. Okay, let's go back to this detail. A folded dryer sheet. So I'm assuming here he tried to wash the pool in the washer. I can't. And then threw it in the dryer. Wait, wouldn't that melt in the dryer though? Yeah, they found pool pieces in her wounds. They did. I like all the info that's coming out. Yeah, there's a lot. He did go on tour after the unaliving, but when the pressure started, he canceled his tour. Yeah, Interscope. B12 says, Interscope. Yeah, if that doesn't ring a bell. Diddy, Interscope. Lots of stuff that goes on with Interscope. Everybody was making money from David. No one wanted a problem. So everybody was just yes men to David. I don't know. A part of me thinks everyone that knew should be charged with, I don't know what they call it, keeping evidence from the police, not reporting it, child abuse. I don't know. One of them. We're going to watch this interview with Hockman. And then there's also the one we're going to watch from the family's attorney. So this is a 4-minute clip, and then we'll get our update on day 3. Just want to make sure we don't miss anything. And let me know if you guys would like to go through the transcripts, because I might try to find a way to get access.
My name is Nathan Hockman. I'm the Los Angeles County District Attorney. Today starts the day, the preliminary hearing of David Anthony Burke, the singer David, spelled D4VD. This preliminary hearing will last approximately 3 to 5 days, at which point we will be seeking to hold David to answer for 3 felony counts of which he has been charged. First-degree murder with special circumstances, the count of lewd and lascivious acts with a 13-year-old, and the count of mutilation of human remains. David will be facing a maximum punishment of life without eligible. The decision on whether or not to seek the death penalty has not been made at this point. Now, the point of a preliminary hearing is somewhat different than you actually perceive in the media, whether it's TV or the movies. Because what often happens in TV or the movies is you go from an immediate arrest into a trial. But in our system and in California in particular, you have an intermediate step. That intermediate step is a preliminary hearing where effectively the prosecution's evidence is going to be tested before a judge, not a jury. The standard that we have to meet is not beyond a reasonable doubt at the preliminary hearing stage. It is probable cause. We are not obligated, nor will we be presenting all the evidence at a preliminary hearing that we will be presenting at a trial to prove David beyond a reasonable doubt guilty of the 3 felony charges of which he has been charged. So at the preliminary hearing, we will call a number of officers. We estimate there'll be over 10 different witnesses, both officer testimony, coroner testimony, and there'll be individual witnesses as well. And again, we can rely on hearsay and other things that won't be allowed to be relied on in an actual trial. The judge at the end of the presentation of the evidence, and again, this is evidence that can be cross-examined by a defense attorney, and that process has already been begun. At the end of the presentation of all this evidence, the question will be, will David be held to answer on the 3 felony charges? We believe we will more than accomplish the evidentiary burden of probable cause at this point to hold David to answer on these 3 felony charges. At that point, if the judge does hold him to answer, we will file an information that will detail the actual 3 criminal charges. Thereafter, there will be a trial date that will be set, and David, if he so chooses, will proceed to trial. And we will prove at that point, beyond a reasonable doubt, that David committed these 3 crimes. And we do not predict if, when he is convicted, we will then be seeking the sentence that we are allowed to seek by order of the law, and we will let you know at a future date whether or not that sentence will also include the death penalty. So I wanted to take this opportunity as we're starting this preliminary hearing process to explain where the preliminary hearing fits in the process so people can understand as we are presenting evidence and it is being cross-examined what ultimately the standard is for the judge to determine, and that's probable cause, not beyond a reasonable doubt. It is a judge that is doing this determination, not a jury at this point, and that there will subsequently be a trial when the judge holds David to answer on these 3 felony charges. When this preliminary hearing is over, I will come back to address you, and at that point, I will take questions. Thank you very much.
No visible emotion.
Okay, so that's from the district attorney. Now let's watch the short clip of the family's attorney with this post, and then we'll continue with a couple of clips. This is from Taylor, who I believe is also a reporter, independent reporter. Let's see. Patrick Steinfeld, attorney for Celeste Rivas Hernandez family, recapped day 2 of the hearing that will determine whether her accused murderer, David, will go to trial. Steinfeld said today was a much better day for the family. Following testimony about Burke's finances, LAPD and Chelsea Murillo took the stand to testify on the processing of Burke's Tesla. Photos of the vehicle trunks were shown where masses of maggots were found. Red stains were also found inside the Tesla and were tested, receiving a presumptive positive result for blood. Quote, tomorrow the medical examiner will be taking stands. So we expect to hear more evidence from the medical examiner, end quote, Steinfeld said. Additionally, Steinfeld said the family were happy with the job done by the attorney Beth Silverman and LAPD. The family are very private individuals, and they're doing the best that they can to show their support and love for Celeste by appearing at these proceedings, Steinfeld said. So let's watch this clip.
Images. This is family. So I'd like to just give you a brief rundown on how things went today. Yesterday was a very difficult day for Celeste's parents. There was a lot of gruesome testimony that was provided, as well as a lot of disgusting images that we saw. Today was a much better day, and I know that a lot of you are concerned about how the family feels, and today was a much better day for them. We heard about blood. We heard in the morning from the Vice President of Finance at Interscope Records, who gave a summary of the earnings that David made over the last few years. And, you know, he was an up-and-coming rising star. But once you started hearing the numbers, it was rather stunning, the amount of money that he was earning and his earning capacity. He had guarantees of a minimum of $3 million and a maximum guarantee of $6 million.
Wow.
With bonuses that increase. And so the numbers just went up and up and up. And eventually he was looking at potential guaranteed payments of $19 million per year for his albums. Unfortunately for him, the contract with Interscope Records was terminated and canceled, and so therefore he wasn't able to be paid out on that income. After the morning appearance, we heard from a CHP officer who was the one that responded to a call from a Caltrans worker who found Celeste's passport on Highway 152 in Santa Barbara. The CHP officer had photographs of Celeste's passport, as well as the exact location that the passport was located at. The defense attorney cross-examined the CHP officer, but the cross-examination was wholly ineffective. Then a criminologist took the stand and testified that blood stains were found on the lower compartment trunk of David's Tesla, and that they tested positive for Celeste's DNA. They also said that there were cuts on a floor mat in the garage, and that there were red stains on the floor mat and under the floor mat, as well as on a rowing machine, on the Tesla charging cable, on a trash bag, on a green tarp, and on the blue inflatable pool that we've all heard about. And there were cuts on the pool that appeared to be made by a sharp object.
So he was cutting her up when she was in the pool. Robin, I agree with you. I believe he had her in the house for a time period because people noticed the smell. Or maybe he tried to wash some of the blood off and whatnot, bodily fluids in the shower or something. That was always my opinion. I wonder if he was planning on unaliving his helpers too. Oh, so someone thinks that he had helpers. Yeah. The more I hear, I mean, it could be. We don't know. The more I hear about the case, the more insane the case gets. Yeah. With another male DNA. Is that the one with the bodyguard? The clip? Yeah, I know for a long time we thought he had help, but we would know, right?
Tomorrow, the medical examiner will be taking stands, so we expect to hear more evidence from the medical examiner.
Thank you. Sir, what was Mercedes' reactions to seeing the photos of those maggots and insects in the Tesla?
It was, it's very disheartening for the family. They are very private individuals, and they're doing the best that they can to show their support and love for Celeste by appearing at these proceedings, and they'll continue to appear at these proceedings as they go on. But they did tell me that they are really pleased with the job that Beth Silverman is doing for the district attorney's office and the evidence that they are putting in before the court, because at this point, the defense attorneys really haven't been able to poke a hole in any of the prosecution's evidence that they put into place. So they're doing the best they can, but it's hard for them.
Is that why the family left for the rest of the day, sir?
Yes, it is. They are driving in from Lake Elsinore, and they had problems getting to court on time today, so they just wanted to go home. They didn't sleep well last night, and so they wanted to beat the traffic, get home early so they can be here tomorrow morning. They're going to skip the first part of tomorrow's hearing, which starts at 9:15, and they'll be here at 10:30 tomorrow.
We saw the photo of Celeste when she was 11 years old and her passport photo ID. Can you talk about Celeste, from the parents' perspective, what she was like and why they're here to get justice for her?
Celeste was a beautiful 14-year-old girl. She was full of life and energy, and she brought a lot of love and joy into the family home. And they have a hole in their heart that'll never be replaced, because Celeste's life was ripped away allegedly by David Anthony Burke, and the family knows that their life has forever been changed.
Correct. Sir, and I just wanted to say, despite the language barrier, we appreciate you taking your time to put them into to take care of them and make sure that everything is well and that Celeste gets justice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Despite the language barrier, they're entitled to justice, just like anyone else.
Yeah, there is an interpreter in there, and I can't imagine that also being so rough, not knowing. I'm sure they understand a lot, but they have interpreter, it's just another thing on top of the pain that they're experiencing. Let's watch this clip with Jesse Weber about day 2. Actually, let's read the article first, and then we'll jump over to the clip. We have a couple more clips to watch, just so we're caught up on days 1 through 3. Second half of testimony resumed on Tuesday, afternoon on day 2 of the preliminary hearing. They spend the morning focused on Burke's finances. Now they're talking about the trip he allegedly paid for himself with Celeste. The people shifted their attention back to the evidence. Before testimony resumed Tuesday afternoon, the court addressed a pair of slightly awkward procedural disputes. Patrick Steinfeld, the civil attorney representing the Rivas-Hernandez family, asked to make a record for what he described as concerns over not being permitted to use his laptop in the courtroom. The judge appeared to admonish Steinfeld and instructed him to be more respectful in addressing the court. The court does not impose strict guidelines, no cell phones, no transmission of emails or texts, and the media is only allowed the use of laptops for notes in the back 2 rows. So there was some drama today with the media and the court. Steve Fisher being excused. We'll get to that shortly. Moments later, defense attorney Blair Burke raised concerns about a visual presentation prosecutors plan to use during the testimony of LAPD criminalist Chelsea Murillo, saying she had not been aware of it beforehand. Prosecutor Beth Silverman quickly and sharply argued, telling the court the defense had, in fact, received the materials. The exchange showcased the ongoing tension between the two sides before testimony resumed. Another argument also arose between the attorneys over the access to the prosecution's exhibits. Prosecutor Beth Silverman told the court she wanted to photograph several exhibits during an afternoon break, but said she had been told she could not do so. Defense attorney Blair Burke responded that she had planned to make court-ordered redactions to certain exhibits before allowing additional access. Silverman immediately jumped, telling the court that was not true, and began shaking her head. The judge intervened, noting that the two attorneys had recently tried another case against one another and suggested their history may have something to do with the ongoing friction between them. Ah, interesting. Interesting. Tension in the courtroom. The afternoon session continued with LAPD criminalist Chelsea Murillo on the stand, who described processing Burke's Tesla Model X, where Celeste's body was discovered, telling the court the vehicle emitted a strong odor consistent with human decomp and showed signs of insect activity in the front trunk or the frunk. When testimony resumed, Murillo walked the court through additional photographs documenting the forensic processing of Burke's Tesla. She testified investigators found multiple air fresheners tucked in the rear door pockets, while additional photos showed extensive insect activity inside the front trunk, including maggots, dead flies, and clusters of insects surrounding one of the air fresheners. There were also close-up photographs of dense masses of maggots inside the frunk. Oh my gosh. This is like so bad. Maggots, air fresheners. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. Murillo explained that investigators tested portion of the vehicle using phenolphthalein, a presumptive blood test. Later applied Blue Star, a chemical enhancement similar to luminol used to detect traces of blood. Photographs showing several areas in the rear cargo trunk marked with yellow evidence place cards after reddish stains were identified. Before and after Blue Star images were also shown from the trunk and third row seating area, where Silverman suggested Celeste may have been placed at some point inside the vehicle. Murillo further testified that investigators recovered a USB flash drive or a memory stick from the Tesla's glove compartment, which was collected by LAPD. On cross-examination, defense attorney Blair Burke focused on the handling and processing of the vehicle before Murillo's arrival. Murillo acknowledged she responded on September 9th, 2025, after being briefed by detectives that a body had already been discovered and understood the Tesla had been examined the previous day. She testified the vehicle's front trunk was closed when she began her examination and said detectives donned gloves before coming in contact with the vehicle. Burke also questioned a handwritten correction on the forensic request form, though Murillo said she did not know when it had been made. When Murillo confirmed investigators did not perform the testing on the vehicle's exterior, she explained she did swab portions of the front of the Tesla for potential touch DNA after observing disturbances in the dust. Burke also pointed to areas investigators chose not to test, eliciting testimony from Murillo that neither the interior nor exterior of the vehicle's rear trunk was swabbed or chemically tested. Burke also pointed out that the reddish stains identified during the examination produced only presumptive positive results for blood. Murillo agreed that a presumptive test does not conclusively establish blood and said that the lab analysis would be required to confirm. Quote, and you cannot determine when the reddish stains were placed there or who placed the stains there. Murillo agreed she could not. Burke also questioned whether some of the forensic photographs shown to the court had been digitally altered. Pointing to one exhibit, she asked Murillo whether it had been photoshopped or otherwise enhanced. Murillo testified the image had not been altered, but said any photographs that had undergone digital enhancement would be labeled accordingly. Burke concluded by asking whether Blue Star testing detected blood in the front passenger area of the Tesla. Murillo testified that she could not confirm that from her own analysis, and said determining whether additional blood was present fell outside the scope of her expertise. During redirect, Silverman confirmed with Murillo that if any photo enhancements were done, it simply meant to improve visibility. Murillo and Silverman agree their photo documentation process is accurate, lab protocol, and used in crime labs across the country. Murillo confirmed that Celeste DNA was also found presumptively. Prosecutors called Lauren Wallace, an LAPD criminalist assigned to the field investigation unit, who testified she processed evidence recovered during the search of Burke's home. Wallace walked the court through additional forensic evidence collected from the garage, including a reddish stain on a Tesla charging cable that had been tested presumptively positive for the positive presence of blood. Wallace also testified that investigators documented several linear cuts in the rubber floor mats recovered from the garage, describing the damage as being consistent with contact from a sharp object. Photographs of the cuts were shown along with several reddish stains visible on the mats. Wallace said she performed the testing on the stains, collected sample from those that tested positive for the possible presence of blood for further laboratory analysis. Prosecutors also introduced photographs showing similar reddish stains on a rowing machine inside the garage, which she documented and tested as part of the forensic examination. Why is there stains on the rowing machine? The court was then shown Blue Star photographs of rubber floor mats mats near a rowing machine, where Wallace said the chemical enhancement produced a large area of bright blue luminescence, consistent with the reaction to possible blood. Similar luminescence was also observed on the brick garage floor beneath the mats, suggesting a possible blood-like substance may have seeped underneath. Wallace then testified that investigators recovered a garbage bag containing a cell phone, black fabric, and wipes with brown stains, with the latter testing presumptively positive for blood. The court was also shown photographs of 2 green tarps bearing several reddish stains that likewise produced presumptive positive results during the phenolphthalein testing and reacted to Blue Star. Wallace also described examining the inflatable pool recovered from the garage. Although no visible stains were observed, she testified the pool emitted a fresh laundry-like scent and produced luminescence after Blue Star was applied. Investigators also found a rolled-up dryer sheet inside the pool, which was photographed and collected as evidence. Wallace also noted there were jagged linear cuts in the inflatable pool. On cross-examination, defense attorney Blair Burke focused on Wallace's evidence collection procedures and the possibility of contamination. Wallace testified that she wears fresh gloves when handling evidence and changes them between items to prevent the transfer of trace or touch DNA. Although she does not wear goggles, Wallace said she wears a face covering over her nose and mouth and follows protocols designed to minimize the risk of introducing foreign DNA. Burke also established that LAPD detectives Joshua Byers and Farrell were present during the search of Burke's Doheny Place residence, and that Wallace had been instructed to look for weapons or tools that may have been used in possible dismemberment. Wow. There's so much in this case. Let's get to another last time they document driving, it was Ross on July 20-something. She was found on September 8th. Yes. And identified September 16th, I believe. Again, I'm still confused on why he's so dumb and thought that nobody would question his Tesla, and or if there was somebody involved in that. But if there was another person, we would know, right? Let's watch this 10-minute clip by News Nation with Mark Garagos on.
Whether or not there is enough evidence to put singer David, real name, legal name, David Anthony Burke, on trial for the horrific alleged murder, dismemberment, and sexual abuse of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Because today, prosecutors continue to focus on David's finances and lucrative career, even seemingly on who may have known about Burke's alleged relationship with Celeste, including one of his money managers, who admitted to at least hearing of Celeste's first name, the fact that she may have traveled with Burke to London. Now, remember, this is all important because prosecutors are not only trying to prove that Burke had an illegal sexual relationship with Celeste, a minor, but that he also had a financial motive to kill her in order to prevent her from revealing it. This is a special circumstance allegation that can carry the potential of the death penalty. I mean, you had testimony that revealed Burke earned a whopping $10 million between 2023 and 2025. So it gives you an idea of what he could have lost. And the court also heard testimony about the condition of the Tesla where Celeste's body was reportedly found. You had one criminalist describing the odor from the vehicle and noting that 11 air fresheners had been placed inside. Suspicious? This was alongside testimony from another criminalist about evidence of blood that was apparently found at Burke's home. Now, look, Burke is innocent unless proven guilty. He has pleaded not guilty to the charges of first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child, unlawful mutilation of human remains. There is a lot to get into tonight. I have a great panel. Joining me now live from Los Angeles, senior national correspondent Brian Entin, who's been at the courthouse, and famed criminal trial attorney Mark Garagos, host of the podcast Two Angry Men, Reasonable Doubt. Brian, I'm going to start with you. What was the biggest takeaway for you from today's testimony?
I mean, look, it was another tough day just in terms of how gruesome and horrific the details are. You mentioned the deodorizers inside, the air fresheners inside the Tesla. There were 11 of them. The stench was so bad from the decomposing body, Jesse, and there were maggots and there were insects. And one of those air fresheners, you couldn't even see it because it was literally, we saw the pictures, it was literally covered in maggots. So, and you think that, you know, Celeste's parents are sitting right there. The details were awful. They talked about the chemical test for the blood. There was the potential of blood pretty much being everywhere. The kiddie pool that we've heard so much about, that the prosecution alleges is where Celeste's body was dismembered. There was a gasp in the courtroom, Jesse. It's the first time that's happened. Literally, people in the courtroom gasped when they showed the photo of how the entire kiddie pool lit up when they put the light over it to show just how much blood there was, Jesse.
Yeah, and they're basically trying to say this is David's Tesla. This was his property, right? They're trying to show evidence of him driving the car. How on earth could he not have known what had happened and what was going on there? But Mark, I want to go to you, the law. Look, to me, the question is not so much does the prosecution have enough evidence to move this to trial, which is the purpose of this preliminary hearing.
Yeah, I know we've talked about the car before. Wasn't somebody moving that Tesla around for him? Yeah, and you know, there was an officer that went by to ticket it too. Did they not smell anything? Like, it's a whole damn body in the heat, you know?
It's a low standard. It's a low bar for the prosecution. You just have to show probable cause. Seems to me likely the court will find that. You may disagree. But to me, we are seeing the evidence and the building blocks of the case should this go to trial. We're seeing how strong the prosecution may think their case is to possibly negotiate a deal with David should this move forward with the death penalty. Look at what we have. So in your opinion, how has the prosecution done so far at ultimately trying to prove the charges and the special circumstances?
Well, I think right now, and I know this may not be a popular opinion, but what the prosecution has proved is that apparently after she died, she was dismembered and she was allowed to decompose in the car, which is gruesome. I agree with Brian, and disgusting. And, the deodorizers are graphic and all of that. And the kiddie pool where the dismemberment took place is all very graphic. The problem is the prosecution still has not, at this point, after 2 days of a preliminary hearing, talked about how they are going to forensically show how she was killed. And I suppose we've got 2 more days to prove that. But so far, that isn't what we've seen.
Mark, I hear you. I hear you on that. Makes me wonder, is the defense trying to build the argument? And Brian, I'll go to you in a second, but do you think that the defense is trying to build the argument, Mark? He purchased all these things, the chainsaws, the laundry bags, the body bag, after she died. So not before. You can't say that he planned it, right? Maybe it was a heat of the moment killing. Maybe it was self-defense. Do we really know what happened in the house? Are they also trying to say the chainsaws, there was negative testing for blood, although I believe one of the chainsaws might have been missing. Is that the kind of argument that you
There's some evidence that I think is critical here that is missing.
see them forming? That maybe we have to say he was part of the cover-up, he was part of the dismemberment, but in terms of this actually being murder, maybe not?
I think you've hit on it precisely. Take a look at the statement that I think was carefully crafted by the defense. I think that shows, and as you pointed out, not only the chainsaws had nothing on them, but in addition to that, the box that was found was unopened. And there has been precious little information or evidence so far that would show exactly how this was done or when it was done. We know precisely what happened afterwards. What we don't have is what happened before, and that is one of the kind of prosecutorial hurdles they have to get over, even for a low bar of a probable cause preliminary hearing.
Now, Brian, you tell me if there was any evidence that you heard about the actual killing yet. I know we might hear text messages, we might hear about the Uber, we might hear about how he allegedly lured her to the property. But so tell me about that. But also, there was something else that happened today that I wanted your opinion about. There was this heated moment, right, where the prosecutor pushed Burke's money manager, business associate, on what he knew about this relationship between David and Celeste, right? What happened there?
Yeah, and the money manager testimony has been very interesting because, first of all, there was a lot of money moving around and a lot of money at stake. He had just signed a $19 million deal. So there was a lot of money at stake. The money manager still...
I'm shook. I did not even know who David was before this case. Let me know in the chat if you pop in your earbuds and listen to David on a daily basis before this happened.
Works for the family right now and is getting paid and is still somewhat in charge of the money, but denied knowing much about Celeste, despite the fact that David allegedly bought the plane ticket to London, bought the plane ticket to Texas, and claimed that the money manager claimed that he mostly dealt with David's mom, that David wasn't so much involved in the money himself. But
when we first were going over this case, I'm like, okay, yeah, like, what is the motive? His career, like, does he even have one? But clearly I was wrong because he did, and he was making good money. I mean, 10 to 13 million from 2024 to 2025. Was that what it was? Or 2023 to 2025? That's a shit ton of money.
Could tell the prosecution was trying to make the point that there was money at stake here, and if it came out that David was in this kind of a relationship with someone underage.
So he had money, but liked to sex little kids, little girls, allegedly, of course. Allegedly.
Everything could go away for him.
Yeah, Mark, what's your opinion about that? In the sense, is it trying to say, yeah, no one else knew that he was taking her to London. He did it by himself. He kept this secret. But at the same time, is that true, or are you seeing the kind of the rumblings of maybe there were other people that knew something and didn't act up? Maybe there are other people that helped in some way. Remember, he's also charged with a sex crime here. Where do you see this going in terms of what other people in his orbit knew or didn't know?
I hate to be the cynic here, but this to me is kind of a pretextual prosecutorial gambit or gamesmanship. What they're trying to do is prove a special circumstance. Yeah. Well, the special circumstance is the financial motive. The reason that I personally think that Beth is kind of going after the money manager,
Beth Silverman, the prosecutor,
Beth Silverman, is because he won't give her what she wants. And the reason she wants special circumstance with his resources, if there's no special circumstance, he's out on bail. If he's out on bail, it's harder to convict him. Part of this gamesmanship that's going on is you keep him in on a special circumstance. That means he can't get out on bail. that makes it tougher on him to defend the case. And that's unfortunately one of the things, or one of the gambits that prosecutors get into. This is not by any stretch of the imagination a financial crime or done for finances. I reject that. I think that's nonsense.
Well, I hear where they're going with it, because look, Brian, you tell me what we can expect next from this preliminary hearing. Are we going to hear the text messages between Celeste and David, potentially leading up to when she allegedly went to his place? Because if that's the key, and she says, I'm going to tell everybody about you and what we've been up to, and then he allegedly kills her the next day, I'd imagine that's going to be key. So you tell me what we're looking out for in the next few days of this preliminary hearing.
Yeah, we're looking out for the text messages. What I think may be even more important, though, is going to be the medical examiner. And it seems he is going to be testifying, and that may happen tomorrow, because think about all the questions that Mark was asking about, and how she died, and even how they were able to determine it when when we saw the pictures. There was you couldn't tell it was a person. And I think that his testimony is going to be important, and I'm interested to see the way the defense questions him, and I think that may happen tomorrow.
Yeah, look, remember what the defense said at the very beginning, right? At the very beginning of his arrest, they said, our client didn't commit this murder. Our client is not the cause of Celeste's death. However, if they match up the timing, they said that her phone, she never made any contact anymore after allegedly going to his house. You can see how the prosecution makes this argument. Mark, we'll have to have this conversation another day.
So I saw a comment in the chat that I actually do agree with about his mom. I think it was Calissa Katz. His mom had a motive too, and then right after she was found, she moved all she could into her name. That's sus to me. Yeah, it's sus to me as well. But now that it has been brought up in the courtroom, how much she was making and all of that with the financial manager, I don't know how the civil part will work out, but like clearly they would be trying to move money and assets, right? So that the Hernandez family, when they do file a civil wrongful death suit or whatnot, they don't get anything. But I don't know that they can get away with that now, right? Like they can't say, oh, he didn't have any money, when the financial manager just testified that he made $13 million. I don't know. Is he being serious? He must want to be hired by David. Yeah. Okay, one more clip with, this is Brian Enton and Lauren Conlon, we've been watching her little updates. We still have day 3 update, but I also wanted to watch what they have to say here with Jesse Weber.
Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found dismembered and decomposing in the front trunk of a Tesla allegedly owned by singer David, real name David Anthony Burke, back in September of last year. We all have had a lot of questions. Today, answered some of those questions. Today marked the first day of a preliminary hearing that could last up to 5 days. This is where a judge will later decide if there is enough evidence for the criminal case against David to move forward to trial. But I got to say, the details that were revealed in court this afternoon, they are both new and they are disturbing. Okay, prosecutors allege Burke stabbed Celeste to death in April of 2025 and then dismembered her body. And in what has been reported to be one of the most difficult moments of the day, the prosecution revealed what Celeste's remains look like when they were found at a tow yard in full view of Celeste's family in the front row. Here's how the Rivas family attorney described that moment.
There was an image of Celeste's torso and her head in the trunk of the car, and the prosecutor had to ask what it was because you could not tell it was a head. It was
It was so badly decomposed that you can tell it was a human head.
Absolutely. It was deplorable.
Now, prosecutors claim that Celeste had threatened to expose the alleged illegal sexual relationship between herself and Burke before she was killed. That was the motive. Investigators say they found explicit text messages between the two, along with child sexual abuse material on Burke's phone. And a Los Angeles police detective testified that Burke's online shopping history showed that he allegedly bought a shovel, chainsaws, cadaver bags, heavy-duty laundry bags, cleaning supplies after he allegedly killed her. Now, Burke has pleaded not guilty to charges including murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, unlawfully mutilating human remains. He is innocent unless proven guilty. But we got to talk about what happened today. Joining me now with all the details, we have News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Enton and LA Magazine contributor Lauren Conlon. Spent the day in that courtroom. It's great to have you both here. Lauren, I'm going to start with you. What was it like in the courtroom for the whole day, particularly, though, when those photos were shown? Because that felt like the turning point.
Right. It was incredibly difficult, and I couldn't help myself. I kept looking over at Celeste's father in particular, and, you know, it's heartbreaking. And I actually didn't expect us to see images like that in the courtroom. I really thought maybe they would skip over that just because it was the preliminary hearings. But unfortunately, that's what set the tone. We saw these photos, I want to say pretty much an hour into the hearings, and from there it just got more and more disturbing.
That's interesting, Calissa Katz. Thank you for that. Calissa says a judge can reverse that and force a sale of his assets if they believe the mom moved them intentionally to keep Celeste's family from recovering. I feel David's mom, in my opinion, only knows a lot more for sure than she's putting out.
David showed no emotion, Lauren? Nothing to those photos?
And if she did meet her when Celeste went there to Texas, that's being complicit in child abuse, trafficking, whatnot.
So that was one of the more disturbing parts about this, Jesse. I did not see him tear his eyes away from that screen. He looked at the screen like he was watching a movie. I mean, to me, I have seen defendants in the courtroom when photos are shown or allegations are made, they either shake their head no, they look away. It's hard. I mean, the guy was staring at it like it didn't bother him in the least.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to have an effect on the judge, but if this was in front of a jury, got to wonder if that's going to have an effect. Brian, I think substantively something very interesting happened today. They started not with the tow yard. They didn't start with the crime scene. They started all the way back in 2024 when David first had this interaction with police about his relationship with Celeste, right? When Riverside County got involved, when she was a missing.
They started with that incident because that's when they told him she was a minor. So he can't be saying that he didn't know. Oh, I didn't know. I thought she was 18. Well, back when they visited you, the police visited you, you knew.
And they showed body cam footage of their interaction with David. What'd you take away from that? What was that footage showing?
Yeah, they did. I mean, they showed up to his house because they were looking for Celeste, and they said that he was polite. He acknowledged that he thought she was 18, but someone else had told him that she was 13. And let's not forget, we're talking about a young girl here. It was something I kept remembering throughout the day. And as Lauren said, to see those pictures in court, Jesse, and like, you don't even really want to hear the details of it, but I mean, she was dismembered. She was in multiple bags. She had decomposed, and you had Celeste's parents sitting in the front row. Like, you know, sometimes, you know, they'll leave during those moments. They didn't leave the courtroom. And what would happen is the prosecutor would turn around and sort of like whisper to them, like, okay, this is coming up next. We're about to put up this photo. And they would look down, but there were times they were looking. There were. And I was just thinking the whole time, like what it must have felt like for them.
You know, Brian, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes we talk so much about the charges. We talk so much about strategy. We talk so much about David. This was a young girl who lost her life in brutal fashion. Yes, he's innocent unless proven guilty, but it doesn't take away what everyone saw in that courtroom and what happened to her, which, Lauren, I was following your reporting online, and you said something really interesting. All the testimony and evidence regarding the alleged purchase history of David. So after they claim that he killed her, I listed all the things. You said the order of these alleged purchases may tell you something.
I did. I decided to just list the purchases in chronological order. And, you know, he started by, let's say, ordering a shovel. And then he ordered a couple of chainsaws. And then we see the burn cage, and then we see a burn resistant mat. So in my opinion, and this is pure speculation, I was kind of thinking, okay, was he changing his mind about how he was going to allegedly dispose of the body? And I just want to go back really quick to something that Brian was touching upon, the body cam footage when the police came to David's home looking for Celeste initially in February of 2024. We were actually able to see the photo that he had of her on his phone. And I gotta tell you, I was so disturbed by this photo because he was 18 at the time. She was in 6th grade in this photo. She looked literally, I mean, I think she was 12. She looked 10 years old to me. She's in a Batman sweatshirt. And I'm just like, guys, this is a child. We are literally talking about a child.
Yeah, and that goes to the sex crime charge that he faces. That goes to the motive, right? Lying in wait, killing a witness, killing for financial gain, that he had to make sure that she couldn't expose him. That's the allegation. But this goes to another point. One of the things we were looking out for, Brian, in this preliminary hearing, defense has an opportunity to question these witnesses. We finally got a sense of where the defense is going in their strategy. What did you learn?
Well, a couple of things. I think they're going to try to poke holes in the medical examiner. I think there's going to be questions about, I mean, the body was so badly decomposed. I found the money to be interesting, and it wasn't something I had heard a lot about until today, Jesse. I mean, that he had made a lot of money, $10 to $11 million in just a couple of years. Had all of these managers managing his money. His mom was very involved. The prosecution is trying to paint this picture that he had a lot to lose if word got out about this underage girlfriend, or whatever you want to call her, because she's a child, that he could lose everything. But I also sat there thinking today, could that also be part of the defense? Because they were talking a lot about how he didn't know about the money, that it was all these other people who were in control. And I wonder if they're going to go down that path more if there is a trial. Like,
I mean, they knew he knew he was doing well. He knew he was doing well. But Lauren, I'll give you about 30 seconds. What about the idea of questioning what was tested, what was not, the DNA? Was it clear? You know, were they trying to say you can't say exactly what was used to kill her or dismember her?
Well, Blair Burke was definitely poking holes with the second witness, the lead detective, Detective Byers. She kind of said, "Look, you guys didn't test this cadaver bag, or you didn't log this into evidence." And he said, "Well, we couldn't. It physically could not be logged because of the liquid, because of everything that happened with the decomposition." So they took off the handles and the zipper, and his lawyers honed in on that. There's a few other things they honed in on, but to Brian's point, at the end, they wanted to make it known that it was David's mother who managed the money and not David.
Look,
and that was definitely a specific reason.
Big picture, it's going to be an uphill battle for them to convince this judge there's not enough evidence, but you're seeing maybe sampling of what a trial will look like. Lauren Conlin, Brian, and
negligent on their end. I agree. She was a child. Tell me he did not look at this picture or this face. How could you think this was a grown woman? I mean, R.I.P. Celeste. Yeah, good question. Wonder if there's other victims. Huh. It's sick. Sick. Very sad. Very sad. She's a beautiful little child. Okay, I wanted to share you guys Sweet Girl. I know, it's so sad. This is by Flojo. Flojo's been in our chats before. He posted this. Unconfirmed leaked United Airline records circulating Reddit's LAX to London layover flight, September 28th, 29th, 10 hours. Accompanied minor booking reference. Confirmation addressed to Celeste. Billed to David Burke. Shipping address listed under Victoria Mendez. Another layer in the Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. So wild. Here she is in this picture. I don't understand it. It's sick. Okay, last but not least, day 3, which would be yesterday, or was that today? Today. I believe, yeah, today. Let me play it. This is back to Lauren Conlon. Short recap of the third day.
All right, day 3 of David's preliminary hearing, and the morning was definitely very awkward, very, very bizarre. We started off with the judge wanting to make an announcement on the record about someone in the media doing live transmission on Wednesday. I guess the media office got a call about this, and it was actually really annoying, I think, to a lot of journalists, because when we walked in this morning, we were told that we might not be able to have our laptops because of this person. And I was like, are you kidding me? But no, then you kind of felt bad for them because they got admonished in front of the judge and they were asked to leave. And yeah, so that was that. And following that, Beth Silverman said she wanted to make an announcement on the record, basically saying that someone in the gallery, a woman she didn't see in the moment, was making comments to her, negative comments to her, and I guess she wanted that on the record. It was pretty bizarre, but then she turned around.
Sounds like there's tension and drama in the courtroom. Also, why are we not in the courtroom again? I forget. Why didn't they make this public? This hearing public?
And she looked at Steve Fisher, who was in the gallery. He's a private investigator. He did some work, or he does some work for the homeowner, the man that owns the home that David rented in the Hollywood Hills. And she was just like, Steve can't be here. He was a grand jury witness. Oh, and we saw him talking in the hallway to the Rivas Hernandez family attorney, and he shouldn't have done that. And, she just said he's going to be posting because he posts every day anyway. I was like, oh my goodness.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking if there's a federal aspect to it, maybe the trafficking, the CSAM charges, perhaps. But as far as I'm concerned, I thought this was just a criminal case. But why aren't we in court? I know. And I told you guys that I would try to be at the trial, but I need to know ahead of time when they're going to have trial so I could try to make it, because I definitely would love to be there.
And, Steve stood up and he was very, polite and gracious about it. But then the Rivas Hernandez attorney stood up and just said, I just want to clarify, that I was the one that approached Steve. It was a 15-second conversation. That's all it was. And Steve's like, yeah, let's put that on the record. And then Steve left. And then what was crazy was that I guess Beth Silverman kind of turned around, and this is not on the record, but she turned around to talk to Patrick Steinfeld, and they were getting, or at least I heard her get loud with him. And she said something like, push me, you'll see how far that goes, or I'll pull your badge. And I was like, well, this is an interesting start. So anyway, we started off with the first witness being the criminologist from Wednesday, who was Lauren Wallace. Blair Burke was finishing off her cross-examination, and her focus again was based on evidence that wasn't collected or tested. So we went back to the 2 chainsaws that did not get tested, because when they were tested for phenolphthalein, it came back as negative. And I'm so bad at pronouncing that, sorry. Phenolphthalein. So because that test was negative, they said they didn't need to test it for touch DNA or anything else. And then we heard about the third chainsaw, which some people have said or described it as, quote, missing. This chainsaw was a handheld chainsaw, and it was found in a closet, or a storage closet. And this was also not tested for touch DNA either, because it came back negative when they tested for the phenolphthalein. So because of that, it wasn't tested and it wasn't collected. And Wallace kind of said, not everything we collect anyway gets tested. It's sometimes up to the investigators. We discussed this. It's just physically impossible to test everything that we collect anyway. She also said they found jugs of fake blood and trays in the garage, which they did the pheno testing. That was negative, so they didn't log this into evidence either. She was asked about the burn cage, if she saw it. She said she didn't. She wasn't instructed to search over there. And then on redirect, Beth Silverman said, reiterated that not everything at a crime scene that is collected gets tested, only things that are deemed to have potential forensic value. And Wallace agreed. And let me see. Yeah, and she reiterated again that they work together, criminologists and analysts and detectives, to see what most likely would be useful that would have DNA evidence. So they just didn't deem those items useful because of the negative phenolphthalein testing. So the next witness was then LAPD criminologist Lisa Lehendro, a 26-year veteran of the department. So she focused on Celeste's clothing and the inflatable pool. So I'll start with the inflatable pool. She identified some hairs, fibers, plant material, and possible foam-like flakes on this pool using a stereo microscope. She collected these herself. Some fell off manually onto a special mat that she used. And this was also talked about during Blair Burke's cross-examination. So what she did was there were several pieces that we saw of the blue fragments that she got from the medical examiner's office. And she kind of described putting these into the inflatable pool like a puzzle. So there were several pieces that fit, but then there were also about a dozen very, very small pieces that had the same characteristics as the pool material. And it could have originated from the pool, but she could not definitively conclude that they were physical matches because some of the portions of the fragments were missing. They were just small, they were kind of graded. And so again, we also saw later on when we saw photos of Celeste's clothing, her leggings, there were blue fragments embedded in the leggings and some of the clothes. So it was brutal. Her clothes were displayed and it was awful. I mean, the clothing was in very, very poor condition, very strong odor, significant deterioration, and basically soiled. I think her tube top was yellow at one point. It was very hard to tell. She had like brownish socks, Victoria's Secret underwear. The socks were Skechers. The tube top was Forever 21. Sorry. And then her black leggings, they appeared to be ripped in half. Sorry.
It's LA. That's how it is.
So we saw a close-up of a black fragment from the leggings that was supposed to be tested, and it was tested, but all of the clothes were so heavily soiled that the comparative testing that Lehendro was asked to conduct couldn't really happen just because everything was in such bad condition with the decomposition. So let me see. Oh, so the black fragment that from the leggings, we think she collected hairs, fibers, and other trace particles, 2 yellow stains from that black fragment using sterile swabs, but she could not complete that analysis because of the deteriorated condition of the clothing. So that was unfortunate. Let me see what else. During the cross-examination, Blair Burke questioned the scope of her analysis. She pointed out that the fragment comparisons were based on physical characteristics and they were not exhaustive. She, let me see, I talked about what fell naturally from the pool. Oh, she talked about the criminologist tried to lift prints from the pool with basically these print impressions that were left. They were made through, or she saw them through dust. So she was attempting to use an electrostatic dust print lifter and it was unsuccessful. She kind of explained the reasons. The pool was uneven, it was a thick surface, or the possibility that the impressions weren't even made in dust and that's why she couldn't collect them. But Blair Burke said, well, did detectives even give you a shoe to compare against these possible footprints? And she said no. The next witness was LAPD Detective William Roker, a 9-year vet assigned to the Robbery Homicide Investigative Support Unit who specializes in cellular record analysis. I did a whole chart on Twitter. I put this on LAMag.com, but basically he detailed the trips to Santa Barbara and the fact that David's Tesla data and his cell phone data, they pinged certain towers. They were conclusive with one another and these trips. And there was a very Something that, again, we knew about this from the pretrial brief, but he did attempt to call Celeste. The call came through on April 24th around midnight. This was when she was reportedly already deceased. And it went he basically said it was unavailable. And the reasons being that, you know, it could have gone straight to voicemail, it would have been on airplane mode, or it would have been turned off. But yeah, this call was made. So go ahead, read my articles, lamag.com, go to my Twitter, go to LA Mag.
We've been reading her stuff all night. So we're getting all the information from her and Brian Enton. I feel like they're trying to find what mistakes were made in the investigation, possibly because what they have against David is solid. So I don't blame them for doing that. I want to show you guys this post from Steve Fisher. If you're not familiar with who Steve Fisher is, he's a private investigator. He's been heavily involved and has a lot of, I think, information maybe that we do or don't know. He's involved in the grand jury, and allegedly, is it Beth? Yeah, Beth has an issue with him. Let's read about that. According to Lauren Conlon, drama unfolded in the courtroom today with a frustrated judge, Charlene Olmedo, entering the Clara Shortridge Foltz courtroom Thursday morning with several issues she wanted to put on the record. Before testimony resumed for the third day of David Anthony Burke's preliminary hearing, the judge announced she received an email informing the court's media office that a content creator in another state was receiving live transmitted updates about what was occurring in the court. The judge had previously ordered that live transmitting for this hearing was not allowed, and the order is stated before courts begin every morning. An altercation also took place between Beth Silverman and private investigator Steve Fisher, and Silverman accusing Fisher of directing negative comments at her, stating he could not be present in the courtroom as he was previously a witness in the grand jury. So Steve Fisher, I believe, was hired by the owners of the house. I don't know if they still are the owners, where David was living, because they wanted to know what had happened in that house. And that's how Steve Fisher got involved with the case. And he did a lot of background work on it. And so clearly there's a problem with him. But I like Steve Fisher. I think he's done a great job reporting on this. Let's continue. Directing negative comments at her and stating he would not be present because he was a witness in the grand jury. Finally, Silverman stated on record that Celeste's family attorney, Patrick Steinfeld, who we watched earlier, had spoken with Fisher on day one of the hearing, which she also stated was not allowed. Steinfeld turned to Fisher and stated that he approached the investigator and the conversation only lasted 15 seconds. Fisher ultimately left the courtroom without objection. SF Investigates and I spoke following his altercation with Silverman on Tuesday. He stated Beth Silverman is not a fan of him, previously predicting more of that will come out. He says, she does not like the fact that I've kept the story. I've tried to keep it in the media while nothing seemed to be happening. More forensic evidence was discussed once court began. Lauren Conlon has provided updates, which we just watched. But let's listen to Steve Fisher talk about that interaction with Beth Silverman, because they caught him to hear about him. Hi, Alcini. Hey, Lindsay. And hey, before I go, Melly, it's the Karen Reed effect. This guy's digital footprint is probably horrible, to put it lightly. Yeah, I know. I was thinking with some of that stuff going on the dark web.
Speak a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, so Beth Silverman
this is Steve Fisher.
Is not a fan of mine. More of that, I think, will come out as transcripts are released from grand juries and whatnot. And maybe the reason why she does not like the fact that I have kept the story. I've tried to keep it in the media while nothing seemed to be happening. And this is before grand juries were going on. And what happened in the hallway, which really kind of shocked me, was the family attorney for Celeste family. He came up and introduced himself. I didn't know who he was. I never met him, and he took me aside, and we had a few of nice words, and he thanked me for advocating for Celeste. And that Silverman walked by and heard that, and actually grabbed him and told him she was not allowed to talk to me, that he was not allowed to talk to me, and pulled him away. And that's really bizarre from a district attorney to say that an attorney for the family is not allowed to talk to me. It's really, like I said, I don't understand why that happened or the legalities around that. But she pulled him away and said right in front of you too, but in front of a lot of people, you're not allowed to talk to him. Do not talk to him. And
Have you ever had an interaction with a prosecutor like that before?
Never. I mean, I've had a couple with this one, where she actually gave me a handwritten note at one point and told me how to appear in court. And I had to, in order to protect myself, I had to put that out on social media because it was like an underground hearing. She was trying to have me punished for speaking about the case. And there's been some, detectives knocking on my home door at 6 a.m. in the morning. Detectives from her office, from the DA's office, not LAPD. So it's very bizarre. I don't know why she's so worried about me, but she is.
All right, thank you.
Interesting. That Silverman is worried about Steve Fisher. Why? Because he covered the case when she didn't want anyone to cover it? Sounds familiar. Not me throwing shade. Well, let's see. I have a couple more X posts, not very long. We already heard from Lauren Conlon for day 3. Okay. Yes, he was asked to leave the courtroom. Okay, I think we know the dryer sheet found in the inflatable pool. Again, I don't know, like, did he try to throw the inflatable pool in the dryer? Wouldn't that melt? I don't know. He's probably trying to get rid of evidence. Let me make sure I got everything. Yeah, I think I did. Sorry, I had a cough. Yeah, I made her look bad. Sorry, I have to cough. Okay, sorry, I'm back. I think Steve Fisher has done a great job. I didn't know people had beef like this in the courthouse for a big case too. Yeah, there's a couple of segments I want to watch, but we might do that on a different live regarding this case, just like, the Nancy Graces of the world and whatnot. But I'll schedule that on a different live, maybe like a more hangout one, because this live has already been going for a little while. Let me see what you guys are saying. I can't. Yeah, we'll see if the actual trial is or not. I hope it is streamed, the trial, or live public for the public, you know what I mean? It may have federal aspects is my guess as to why it's not public. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Apparently prelims in LA aren't allowed to be publicly televised. I didn't know that. Robert says, I hope David gets life in prison without the possibility of parole. They might just want the death penalty off the table, but why his mom is looking for entertainment attorneys blows my mind. And I think, in my opinion, she needs to be looked at a little bit more for her part in this, because clearly she knew about their relationship. I hope it's public as possible, though. I hope so, too. I really do. Very sad case, but this trial will be so good. We've been waiting for it for a long time. R.I.P. little Celeste. She did not deserve to be dismembered and killed in the way that she was, and groomed. He still has supporters. Yuck. Who's supporting him? I'm not trying to tell anyone what to do, but we should not enable that behavior. Very sad. My heart goes out to her family. I can't imagine. Can't imagine. So sad. Yeah, it is very sad. Anyways, thank you guys for being here. I will be back with more David as well. Like I said, I'm working on a bunch of lives for the rest of the week. We will be having members only this weekend. Get ready for that. Those will be wild per usual. We always have so much fun. RIP Celeste. Thank you to everyone who's here supporting and liking and donating and replaying. Shout out to all the replay viewers. Shout out to everyone that was here in the live chat the whole time participating. RIP Celeste. Yes. So I believe tomorrow they're back in court. So I will probably do an update on that at some point, maybe later in the day. But anyways, we will continue to follow the case. Hopefully we find out when trial's going to happen. I would love to be at that. And I will do my best to make it there. But anyways, thank you guys for being here and participating. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.